I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way. Man on a mission, I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah, it's all hard, ain't no fear here. You ain't giving this at all, you steer clear. Never beat, I've been down and I reappear. You got some money on the line, you better put it here. Rolling in and doing that work. Check priorities, I'm doing that first. Checks big and I'm sure that hurts, but it's checkmate, we ain't selling short, know the work. Ain't nowhere to hide, you ain't gotta see me come and keep me on your mind, cause I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way. Man on a mission, I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah, man we coming for them bags that they said I couldn't have, get the team. I got a vision for the things you ain't believe. And here's the motto, hard work, this over everything. It's that comeback. I'm calling plays, hit the pass, then the run back. Yeah, I'm far ahead and gotta run laps. But we ain't letting up, we never done that. Ain't nowhere to hide, you ain't gotta see me come and keep me on your mind, cause I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way. Man on a mission, I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah, I'm on the way. On the way. Yeah, on the way. I'm on the way. I'm on the way. Let's get it. I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way. Man on a mission, I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah, it's all hard, ain't no fear here. You ain't giving this to all, you steer clear. Never beat, I've been down and I reappear. You got some money on the line, you better put it here. Rolling in and doing that work. Check priorities, I'm doing that first. Checks big and I'm sure that hurts. But it's checkmate, we ain't selling short, no the work. Ain't nowhere to hide. You ain't gotta see me come and keep me on your mind. Cause I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way. Man on a mission, I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah, man we coming for them bags. If they said I couldn't have, get the team. I got a vision for the things you ain't believe. And here's the motto, hard work, this over everything. It's that comeback. I'm calling plays, hit the pass, then the run back. Yeah, I'm far ahead and gotta run laps. But we ain't letting up, we never done that. Ain't nowhere to hide. You ain't gotta see me come and keep me on your mind. Cause I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way. Man on a mission, I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah, I'm on the way. On the way. Yeah, on the way. I'm on the way. I'm on the way.
send them in through the front, trying to be the tripwire to. They've all got to push in towards the house.
Hello and welcome to the second day of PMPL EU 2023 Fall Season. I'm Jeannie, joined on the desk by Max. And after yesterday, how are we feeling? Because that was one way to start it off.
Well, yeah, some teams that I would say we expected Ginny to do well, and they did, in fact, do really well. Compared to my prediction game, that was horrendous, which is why I got my lucky jacket today. So hopefully it's going to go a bit smooth.
And if it doesn't?
don't. Just,
All right.
just the pre-show, please. No.
We'll cross the bridge when we get there. But speaking of predictions, we all kind of threw in our predictions in terms of who we are expecting to be winning this season. So make sure that you follow us on socials so you can stay up to date with our predictions, with your favorite teams, and with everything PMPL EU related. Even the occasional pretty good meme here and there, if I do say something.
Yeah, look at this. Wow, everyone picks Gladiator.
I wonder why.
We're all in the same line. I mean, it was how they played. I mean, we were looking at the results yesterday on the pre-show, right? They were all, like, every time pretty much reaching a top 3 except one in PMRC where they got 10th, but otherwise it's just third, second, first, third, second, third. So they're always going to be in those podium finishes. Though, I got to appreciate, Ginny, you did put Nexus. Though not the best opening day, let's say.
Yeah, not the best, but I believe, I mean, Blank's been thinking really hard about these predictions, and he put Titans and MUERTE second and third, and he's actually had the most successful day yesterday. So who knows, maybe that thinking is actually paying off finally. But speaking of yesterday and how these teams started off strong, our winners were a mixed bag, but I think if anything, Max, it really was a term of meeting expectations and setting the tone for the rest of the season, with Alpha Team coming through with a win, MADBULLS getting 2 chicken dinners and a podium finish. We even had Gladiators coming out on top. So all of these individual teams and players have really shown up.
Exactly. I mean, the Alpha Team Chicken Dinner especially was really impressive. You can see the stats right now, 15 eliminations on top, a lot of damage, 3.2k damage on the Miramar. Not quite easy to really express that much pressure and aggressivity on this map. Yeah, otherwise, KONINA Power, good to see them. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, right? Seeing himself get Chicken Dinner on the map other than Sanhok is a really good kind of like setup for the rest of the season, because they were a very Sanhok-focused team in the spring season with their rotations from the eastern coast into the center. There was not a lot of teams really contesting them, but seeing that kind of dominant finish here in a really tough circle, it's fair to say, around Potato Hill is a good approach from KONINA Power. So just hoping the Alpha Team and KONINA Power is not just a flash in a pan and they can just keep these results coming in.
Yeah, it's about that consistency, and it's about continuously showing up, and that is another day, another play day, another 5 maps that we're going to be looking at. So another chance for these teams to show us exactly, Max, what you just said, that it's not a flash in the pan, and they can show up, and they can do it continuously. We're going to be switching it up today a little bit, starting off with Sanhok as our first map, which will be iterated twice, Erangel second, which will also be iterated twice. It will be the final map, and only one Miramar today. And honestly, Max, after the amount of damage and elims that we've seen on both Miramar and Erangel, I'm very happy that we're going to be seeing those 2 maps again today. And I'm interested to see how Sanhok plays out too, actually.
That's actually the thing. I want to focus a lot more on Sanhok this time around. I want to see what's going to be coming through from some of the teams. 2 in particular that comes to mind I feel like should have done so well on that Sanhok of yesterday. It's PERMITTA and VULGAR boys. They had one of the smoothest transitions possible right in front of them, up north next to Tatmok, and they just didn't pull the trigger, and then they colluded into one another, started engaging one another, and pretty much was down to just one player at the very end. So yeah, teams like them can try and improve how they rotate, and I want to see especially Gladiators, how are they going to rotate across the river, because we know if the circle goes northwest on their island, they're going to be pretty damn comfortable, but if they have to cross the rivers, and we saw it yesterday, that's some weird back and forth happening there, and it really made it tough for them to transition to the other islands. So I want them to be maybe a little bit faster on the swivel there for those rotates.
Well, there's one thing is you live and you learn. And from yesterday, we learned that MADBULLS, Major Pride, as well as Gladiators are very much sticking to those top positions alongside Alpha Team. So Alpha Team showing up really for me, Max, on this first day and just absolutely blowing expectations out of the water is something that I'm very excited about. And I'm looking to see, as you mentioned, if they can continue this incredible run throughout the rest of the season. But MADBULLS, I mean, they're MADBULLS, what can I say, really? Already getting themselves a really nice cushion of 20 points between them and second place.
Normally, you would want about a 50-50 split of placement points and elimination points. That's how it was when you would have the previous point system. But even now, with just 10 points per chicken dinner, they're still able to reach that 10, that 50-50 split of placement and eliminations, which means that they are not only reaching the late game consistently, which you can see with their 2 chicken dinners, they got also a 3rd place and a 5th place, but they're just fragging out every single match, and they get so many points because of that. So it's really impressive. They are currently the team to beat at the start of this first phase. Though, teams on the bottom that I would say we really want to see more things from, Ginny. It has to be, in my eyes, NEXUS Gaming. I think that this roster, with how they like just performed, especially in the Spring Championship, was so impressive. It's just one day though, so I don't want to hold it against them. It's just one day, but it is surprising that we are not seeing players like Exo playing. So I wonder if they're going to have him on the bench again, or if he's going to be actually playing today.
Yeah, one day is all you need, though. I mean, the MUERTE also another team that we were expecting maybe to see a little bit more of, especially considering both Blank as well as Jack have put them in their top 3. So looking to see forward to how they're going to be improving over the next couple of days, because again, we do have 3 play days a week, and it is a pretty long season, so they have time to get back and improve. But one thing that I've really noticed, or that we wanted to touch upon, Max, was the fact that MADBULLS yesterday, we were impressed, to say the least, with how they've performed. But look at Spring.
That's the thing. You're looking at the Spring season, 29 eliminations, absolutely massive, but there's one stat that's going to be kind of making the difference here between these 2 seasons, clearly, is that MADBULLS, their survival time of 25 minutes and 30 seconds. That is ludicrous to have on a single play day, and especially the first day of the entirety of the fall season. And because when I was looking at the stats earlier, in Spring, they had 16 placement points, Ginny. In fall season, so yesterday, they had 28, so 12 more points than what they had in Spring. And in Spring, they were pretty much first place after that first day, because they open up with that chicken dinner right away. So they're really strong right out of the gates. But we know that teams like Major Pride, Gladiators, and even other contenders can close that gap. But they're an extremely consistent team, so it's going to be hard already to make it happen, because already having a cushion on your first day of play on the rankings is so impressive. And they got the fragging power. They're really smart when it comes to rotations. I cannot blame Blank for picking them like as many times as he did on the predictions, because they're always in such good spots. MADBULLS currently are looking like the whole package, and currently are the team to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, just having that firepower, having the strategies in place, the patience, the ability to survive for such a long time, but you put it perfectly. They are the perfect package at the moment. They are the team to beat. And it does kind of put a target on their back. And considering the fact that yesterday we have already seen Erangel as well as Miramar and Sanhok from MADBULLS specifically, it means that teams have had that opportunity to sit down, maybe hone in on what they can do to stop MADBULLS in their track, because otherwise they're just going to run away with this lead, and they're going to be first place.
And one thing that's a lot more impressive to me, and that I really appreciate from some of these teams, is when you look, oh, okay, we're gonna move on. I'll keep that point for later on. Yeah, looking at Gladiators and Major Pride, of course, the 2 other teams part of the big 3, as I call it. Okay, copyright. If you say it, I'm going to get a portion of that revenue back. But Major Pride were looking really impressive throughout yesterday, of course, despite that not getting himself a single chicken dinner. I expect that to end up being the case, hopefully, today, because they got close quite a few times in a row. But Gladiators, night and day compared to how they played in Spring compared to fall. And I'm going to have a little visual demonstration for you guys very soon, just to really highlight what's changed. But Gladiators really speeding things up a lot more and playing that central spot, which we're going to go highlight, so I'm not going to be able to display it just yet, but very soon we'll be there.
Yeah, I think looking at the highlights as well, it's just going to further emphasize the fact that both of these teams are in contention for that top spot. Alongside MADBULLS, they also have what it takes to be able to make it through. I mean, we even saw one of the games yesterday where Kitsune died quite early on. Maxi was eliminated, and then being that IGL and having that opportunity to guide the team to victory with only 3 members.
Exactly, that's the thing. If there's anyone on your team that's going to die, the IGL is maybe the least impactful, because he can just focus on IGLing. He's still in the voice comms with your team, and then he's able to direct his team in such a good position, especially on that first Erangel where they do end up taking the win. And then you just have Matic blasting off, right? So it's not much can, yeah, exactly. It's not much can really do about it. And that's actually one of the points I wanted to bring up. I have the impressions that players that were renowned for being these solo players that don't want to play with their team, such as you're looking at Matic from Gladiators, you're looking at Tulika from MADBULLS, you're looking at also Reflect from Alpha Team, are playing so close to now their roster.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to go with my visual representation of what's been happening. This is the Spring season, so this is a circle. And that black dot is actually Gladiators. That's in Spring, okay?
Is that a circle?
I tried my best, okay? I was really bad at arts and crafts. Exactly, thank you very much. And this is them in the fall season. They play dead center, and that possibly because of the new coach. Not sure what's happening on their side, but playing center has been so good because they've been so consistent at getting placement points. And if they have 3-4 players alive, we saw it on that first game, they can just fully send it out there and just obliterate the rest of the lobby and be so controlling. So I love this new version of Gladiators. They're so much quicker to rotate too. Sanhok was a little bit rough, but other than Sanhok, I think their games early on were really good. So I'm hoping we can see more of this Gladiators.
Yeah, it's also interesting that we were able to pick up on that, because that means that the other teams are also able to pick up on it. So we'll see how that's going to play out today. But other teams that really showed up yesterday that we had some expectations for, but we didn't really know exactly how high to set them, were Dagestan and Alpha Team. And both of these teams yesterday, my oh my, did they come out swinging.
Yeah, I feel like we're the true supporters here on this talent roster, Ginny, of the Dagestan 77 team. I love how opportunistic Dagestan have been yesterday, especially that first game. There's fights happening on the outskirts of the circle. They hear those fights. When they're in a bad spot, they fully send it to leapfrog their position and pretty much just pick up 3 eliminations along the way. And the fragging power, more specifically, of Keep and also Shifu is mental. They work so well together. We saw it especially on that one Miramar where they didn't end up taking the win, but this is the gatekeep I'm talking about. They are so aggressive. They take so many opportunities to get those eliminations, and when you get eliminations, Ginny, what comes off the back of that is extra room in this. That was extra room in the circle, so they can just spread out a little bit more, be more controlling, be more aggressive. So that's what I love of them. So I'm loving so far what we saw from Dagestan, but Ashipa, that off angle on that Miramar was just, it was too good. You can't do anything.
Yeah, I think as well when we're looking at Alpha Team, yes, they got their chicken dinner in the bag, and Dagestan maybe not as of yet, but they're similar in a very similar boat to Major Pride, where they're getting the consistent elimination points, they're getting the damage, they're getting the survival time. It's just a matter of time for all the puzzle places to fall in that right position for them to be able to get those placement points in terms of a chicken dinner as well.
Exactly, and most importantly, right now they are in a spot where they could compete for that first place. If they have a really good day today and MADBULLS maybe fall off a little bit, which could happen, you never know, they would be the teams that could have an opportunity to close that gap pretty quickly. I'm not sure on the PMGC points. I don't recall if Alpha Team or Dagestan are currently in a position where they could catch up to Major Pride in first place, but if they keep having days like this and they have like a big pop-off day, they could close that gap pretty quickly also. So you got to keep in mind that you have some underdog teams like Dagestan and the Alpha Team that could upset this entire season.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were expecting, or at least hoping for, really, when we started the season yesterday. I mean, we're talking about, oh, if MADBULLS has one bad day, maybe you can take the first place. It is really important to take into consideration that this is only play day number 2, but it's already setting up such an incredible tone for the rest of the season in terms of what to expect. A dark horse story, an underdog story. Teams that we were expecting to be performing really well did so. Some others might not have. So there's a lot of unknown at the moment that we are looking forward to. But when we're looking at yesterday specifically, is there any team that you saw, Max, and you're like, yes, this is the team that I am absolutely blown out of the water by how they performed? And no, you can't say MADBULLS, Major Pride, or Gladiators.
I can't use a big three. Okay, no, for me, it would have to be, I mean, Alpha Team and Dagestan 77 are the two that instantly come to mind. I thought you were going to ask me teams I was going to say no to on a more negative side of things.
Yeah, I want to leave that for later.
Later?
Start with the positive and then go.
The positive? I don't like being positive, though. I don't like that.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me about the teams that maybe you expected to be showing. I was like, let's keep it positive.
No. MUERTE. I expect them to do a lot better. We saw some glimmer of hope towards the end of yesterday. Actually, on their last game, they got, let me check the result, they got himself a 2nd place with 5 eliminations, which is good. In the first 3 matches, though, they got an 8th place, a 9th, and a 15th place. So definitely a big fall-off compared to what we saw in PMRC Europe versus Africa. And we know that this roster can just pop off sometimes if they are in the right situation, if they have players alive until the very late game. More specifically, in recent times, I think Furia has been a really clear standout for the team. But we saw that Miramar, Ginny. We saw that Miramar where they had so much room over to the western side, and it was like, okay, this is cool. They're going to have a lot of information. They can regroup in a better spot depending on where the circle shifts. And you just see circle after circle, they maintain that split, and that's allowing them to become super weak to teams that are going to get closer to their position. And then you lose Furia, then you lose Malloy, then you only have 2 players alive. They're going to get overwhelmed by MADBULLS. We need to see not only MUERTE, they're not the only one that has this issue, but MUERTE is a clear example in that game. You need to regroup so much quicker because these splits make you so much weaker. Sure, you get info, which is super, super good to have, but late game, you need that fragging power, and when you're split, it's just not that strong.
Yeah, it's not going to be that strong, and you're also going to be much easier to punish as well, which is always something to keep into consideration. But we're ready to head into game, so thank you so much, Monster, for making this all possible. Head over to monster.com/gaming to find out what's in stock, and we're going to be heading over to John and Blank to find out what's in store for us here at PMPL EU Fall 2023.
Oh,
Oh, hell yeah. We're going to be getting straight into Sanhok Blank. We're excited for another day of the full season. We have had a great start to proceedings, and I'm looking forward to the day. I know Sanhok's a particular favorite of yours, so I'm sure you're excited as well.
I mean, double Sanhok day is always the best day. It's undisputed at this point. There is no better day than the double Sanhok day. It's just how it is. It's happy days, really. So for Sanhok, though, we are looking at some clear teams. Obviously, Max and Ginny over on the desk have already pointed out a lot of interesting factors going on here. You know, PERMITTA Esports, VULGAR boys both had a really good chance to get into the circle. PERMITTA Esports instead goes for this weird holdout over on the eastern side. It actually works out. I think for all the wrong reasons, Frank, because I don't think Titans ever expected a team to be holding in a compound out in the blue, and they were dead set on holding that compound as well. They're very much stuck in there in the trenches. So for Titans, it completely ruins their game plan, but for PERMITTA Esports, they pick up themselves nice 4 eliminations and then go on to get fairly high elimination count game. But as Max said, there was a clear chance to win that one. Again, it's a team that's coming into this one. They're fresh on the block over on PMPL EU. Maybe you don't have the confidence to go for those mega runs into the circle. Maybe you think that place is already taken. It's always nerve-wracking coming into a new tournament like this. Playing path down towards that south side, though, John, doesn't really cut off anything in particular. It will mean that some of these teams down towards the south will be able to loot up very quickly, perhaps start moving up towards that northern side a bit quicker than they might have expected.
We did see a couple of hot drops coming through on Sanhok yesterday as well, Blank. It looks like Painan will be a particular hotspot. We've not seen either Alpha or Dagestan on this map. We didn't see them play yesterday. They're in Group C, which means they were able to dodge it. They'll be playing it twice today, so we'll be keeping an eye on them as well over the course of these 2 matches on this map. Titan going to be hot dropping in Painan, having some argy-bargy there in the middle of the main crossing on the South Island. Alpha as well have some noisy neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, Alpha plays this position quite frequently, though, so they should be okay with this. Mandarin playing down towards that southeast side. Very standard here for Alpha. They're not going to be too bothered about this too much. I think for No Mercy Warriors, they're not exactly a team that I think that maybe Alpha should be fearing of. At the moment, currently sat in 3rd place. Some really good performances from yesterday. Very consistent, I would say, from game to game, being able to pick themselves up some points, even get themselves a nice chicken dinner as well. KASIK team here versus Titans. I don't think Titans are going to be too put out by this particular hot drop. I think it's happened to them before in the past. They're very used to this occurring. So honestly, I think it should be good to go, especially Old Boy playing in Africa, having to play this drop a fair few times with Icy. They know what to expect when it comes to a hot drop in Painan. And versus KASIK team, a team that I don't think has been performing out of their minds at the moment. I believe that this should be an easy Titan sweep, considering this is pretty much center of the circle as well in terms of compounds. This is most likely a fight that you want to conclude early and start getting some information off the back of. That's Reflect actually going down. And again, this does happen now and again. And this is very much a read from No Mercy Warriors, John. Reflect is often very far away from the team.
And does get caught. No Mercy Warriors picking up that off angle and potentially moving to the 2-2 standoff that currently sits on that junction compound down to the southwest of these 2 right now. They can get some cheeky little off angles, and Mandarin doesn't look like he's repositioning to regroup with the rest of the roster. Potential for a little bit of danger there for Alpha. Even going further forward, you can see they read that, and they're right away there. Tenchik scrambling away through the hills. That will leave No Mercy Warriors with a pretty important compound for controlling a lot of these teams on the northeast side. They might go a little bit further ahead. There's that walled compound out to the west of them, and I think that's where Alpha might be looking to turn their attention, but No Mercy Warriors are hot on their heels.
Yeah, I think for Alpha right now, more likely a regroup down towards Mandarin side is probably ideal. Considering you know there's going to be teams in Boot Camp. Major Pride currently playing there. They dominated over on their hot drop yesterday. They only lost 1 player and still able to get a fairly decent game off the back of it, with Nomi absolutely stomping that match with 1,800 damage. There's the initial knockdown towards Painan as well, over towards English, going through from Old Boy himself. But yeah, for Alpha Team, this is one of the things where they'll play this 2-1-1 split down towards Quarry side, and then I think from here on out, it's more than likely going to be a thing that no longer happens, especially if No Mercy Warriors are going to read onto that drop. It's great to have that kind of flex early when you get it, but if it's not something that you can continue doing because teams are punishing, then you just have to go back to maybe a 3-1 split with Mandarin still down towards that southeast side.
Alpha did just flip the script, though. They managed to get a knock and a flush over onto Watchmate. They certainly were looking out for him. No Mercy Warriors on 3 players. Evens the scoreline a little bit. Major Pride potential to third party this now as they move south from boot camp. The Painan fight, they did get a knock, didn't go through as a flush, and we saw on a little bit of a flyby there, Blank, that Titan had taken that southwest side of the river, and they're not going to force the issue here. So they'll have that route out and not really going to try and take this fight. But in the meantime, PERMITTA, they've managed to find the hilltop out on that southwest side of Painan, which severely limits Titan's routes out.
Yeah, I think for the time being, Titan's okay with this. I think if you're PERMITTA Esports, you've got to be concerned about the south side of the map as well. If you continue to dip over the top side with those massive rocks in play, it becomes quite difficult to actually spot what's going on. Tixi, again, tries to make that crossing over towards Trifecta. It's not possible. But PERMITTA Esports coming up against Dark Project, John.
They're getting rolled up on right now. Dark Project, they've managed to take one down, but at the cost of a knock. They aren't looking in the best of shape right now. They have 2 players alive and active. Even Eska moves through up to the window, takes a little bit of damage. The Molotov spreading wildly on the wooden floors. Hops in through the window, does go down, but the teammates are there to trade. Last player standing, and it's easily handled. PERMITTA fall in the face of Dark Project.
You know, it's actually really nice to see this squad get some big players on board. I mean, PERMITTA Esports feels like in a team fight, they are fairly decent. It's one of those rotations that need to be improved on just a little bit. But I think that right now, PERMITTA Esports is playing a pretty fancy game, especially with the fact they had to regroup so quickly. Obviously, they were dipping over that top side. As I was mentioning earlier, you've got to be very careful whilst taking peeks down towards Painan. Painan teams aren't really in too much trouble at the moment. More likely, they'll be able to hold out one another teams. Titans, though, I think that they have kind of pressured the issue now over towards KASIK team. They're not likely to leave right now, but with the sight lines that Titans currently holds, it has shunted the majority of the KASIK team players into a single area of Painan, which is on that northwest side. So they don't really have many options to themselves. The Titans can quite happily just hold down the barracks for now.
VULGAR on the northeast side. Are they going to find a better rotation than yesterday when it comes to those late game circles? They're certainly playing slow on the edge right now, all the way over near Lakawi and Barn right now. So they'll have to make their way lickety split. Looks like they are going to be just careening on through. We'll see where they end up crashing. Over on the northwest island, Shockwave moved down from the top side there, and they are now near that trifecta. Major Pride did, as we saw before, eliminate Tixi, the Gladiators Southeast Scout, and that means that Major Pride currently hold the west side of that trifecta compound. Really very powerful. Shockwave going to follow in the footprints of the Gladiators on that western side and swing for the bridge.
Yeah, luckily without MADBULLS being in the game right now, Gladiators do make the heads-up call of like, yes, Major Pride, they immediately go claim Trifecta. Tixi does hold there very, very often to try and give them an outpost to checkpoint towards. But I think for Gladiators, they realize MADBULLS are not in the game. It's unlikely that anyone's going to be holding over towards that northwest bridge that runs down towards Ruins. So they just make an immediate approach through. So this is really, really good research, really good understanding of what the groups are playing today and how to play around that, right? Because you understand that Major Pride, they're still in Trifecta, most likely going to hold this for a while. Tambang must be clear then. Let's just make a quick send through. So I think this is just good guesswork coming through from Gladiators at the moment. In the meantime, Dagestan once again going for a cheeky hold. Not working out too hot though.
The MUERTE trying to meet them at the bridge. Limbo's through, moving up towards Milky Way as well. Has the shotgun in hand, swaps out to the M4, but he's in broadside to Milky Way. Nade over the top, that should be good, but the bounce is just a little bit skew-if. Unfortunately, the flak catches him, lacking, unfortunately, in that spot. And will go down. 2 players now felled for Dagestan. Zadira looking for that res, will be brought back up, but Shifu down in the meantime. Good pressure from the MUERTE. They launch another one over to the back lines, the Molotov to follow it up into the rafters. Milky Way's taking damage, but Zadira is taken down before he can do anything. Furia with the last shot up in the rafters, able to drop it down, and Dagestan taken away.
Lovely double there coming through from Furia. And again, this is why this guy is so good right now onto MUERTE. He has really been able to bring that firepower to the team to enable them in some of these engagements where they might not always come out on top. So really, really strong play coming through from Furia. Unfortunately, they do lose Corker, which is kind of a blow to them. I think Corker's one of the other good players on the team that plays well hand in hand with Furia as that point man. Sad to see, but MUERTE will be happy with this. They effectively clear out the team that was going to be edge guarding them down towards Camp Charlie. They can comfortably move down towards Bantai side, maybe even south on the coast. Yeah, 3 players is not great, but it's certainly something you can live out from. Considering the southeast side is fairly free as well at the moment, certainly a possibility for a lot of these teams on that southeast side, like No Mercy Warriors, even KONINA Power, who are still out in the blue towards Quarry, to get some good positions going forward.
Alpha are pretty close to KONINA Power, and KONINA Power is split. Potential to lose players here if they don't read that Alpha are still trucking along. SBG, in the meantime, they've moved into the northeast side of Painan, right next to KASIK, who have been held here by Titans since the start of the game. And SBG are met with a volley of fire that is a little bit too much, but not for Victor, as he trades it off onto Ingush. Unfortunately, they do lose a player in the process. Another nade put on in, and Trofka goes down next. Up and into the window, the nade looking to push Unicorn back. Skills needs to suppress here. The only player now active for KASIK team is his teammates going for the res. Ingush goes down, and Novalo is brutalizing them in the shack. Moves on in with another nade. The DBS trying to get more done as well. Unicorn and Skills trying to hop out the back, get away with anything they can find, but Titan have oversight on this whole fight, Blank, and they're just not letting anything go through. Skills opens up, and as soon as the door swings, Novalo falls. A nice flush to find as well, and Skills keeps them alive for now.
I think he tries to cross whilst he's waiting for the reload to come through from Skills's. Doesn't quite work out, and Narvala will go down for his troubles. So SBG now in a little bit more of a tricky situation with 2 players down with Alex, Narvalo, just Victor and Snowix left alive with KASIK team rezzing. Titans have been very happy with this fight. I think they were able to set themselves up with some extremely good off angles. They assumed that, you know, these players on the northern side, they'd be the ones coming down this way. Ooh. It's just a great setup overall. And Havlik, again, playing out of his mind yesterday, once again tosses a lovely nade, takes down Snowix. But I still don't think there's any reason to pressure this from in terms of a gunfight. You can still just use that util.
Old boy moved across the river. It looks like a lot of the others are as well. They just want to establish that perimeter. If they get enough knocks, maybe they do force the issue here. Havlik crossing underneath the bridge. It looks like they do want to go for these trades now, Blank. Titan want to get rid of it. They know they're going to have to leave this area, and they can't do so whilst there's still that threat from behind them. They need that free reign. Certainly that's what they've seemed to have theorized here. Icy moving forwards. KASIK will have heard this. SBG, oh, something's going on. The question is what? Havlik hopping in. Skills is given the push back up the stairs. Havlik looking for the shots, catches an ankle, but not much more. Unicorn biding his time around the side. Will he be able to step out? No. Robs is too quick on the draw. Looks for a second as well and puts them to bed. KASIK fall. Now SBG with 2. Last to hold on the north side.
Yeah, Titans just making things claustrophobic now, slowly pushing their way in. Again, this has been their entire idea the whole time. It's just crunch these teams into a singular location. This building is not amazing because if you look out this way, there's just that singular door on the right-hand side. That's the only angle you can take. So they smoke it off, and now they can effectively move up towards the building, possibly take these trades. Old boy being on the outside is a little bit of an interesting one for me. I think he needs to be rather with his team, but Robs is more than enough when it comes to breaching these buildings.
Snowix holding the door frame, leashes a couple of shells, but catches Havlik. Unfortunately, he is just too quick. Was that Robs again? Fine. Oh, he found Victor. Havlik was able to get Snowix done there, but Robs tearing through these teams like nobody's business. You give that man a DBS, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the Titan versus the super big gorilla, and the Titan comes out on top there. And honestly, for Robs, I think he's fairly pleased with the decision he made to move over towards Titans from SBG. I think he's a great pickup for the team as well. But it's good play from Havlik at the end of the day. You got to look at that and assume that the way he's moving is very speedy. And he's immediately taking track of information as soon as he goes past that door, right? Which is the reason why Robs knows who that player is. So it feels like the communication is a bit more on point today, because Robs takes down Victor. Havlik is 100% focused on Snowick, so it's almost an instantaneous wipe rather than fully focusing on one player, and then Nox can start to come through. So really, really good from Titans so far. They get the Soho coming up their way. They can play towards this hillside that is just towards the south for them. Alpha was just Zashipa, I think, left remaining, allows them to possibly take the rocks in the middle of the map, possibly play around there, which is very much an option to them. Major Pride also moving down from Trifecta. They can hold out on this northwest side. They've done this fairly well before, but they did send out a couple of players far. This time around, they're playing much, much more together.
Gladiators now rolling up the hill, trying to take the position that VULGAR currently hold. Kitsune still alive, the DPS on the corner, in close range, but he has teammates to back him up. Fortunately, Kitsune does as well. Shots ringing on in, and he stays alive for the time being. Is he going to be able to get a heal off as well? He does. Can hop in, but unfortunately there comes TUNA. Will be able to take Kitsune down and flush him away. Two players now standing. VULGAR in a very central position, have just lost 2 Black.
Yeah, I mean, for VULGAR, it's a little bit scary there, considering the crash comes through, but you kind of don't expect that sort of crash. KONINA Power, on the other hand, flying through the map right now. This was from a very, very much northeastern rotation, and still with 4 players alive. This is fairly impressive coming through from this team.
Shockwave. They pushed in on the northwest side. Major Pride being taken to task. Dino falls as well, and Major Pride are falling down now. Only Nomi stands in the face of Shockwave. 3 players, 2 of them moving on in, 1 of them on the floor. Nomi needs to find a good trade here for the first opener, but will not be able to do so. Aza takes him down, and Major Pride are eliminated. Shockwave take the northwest.
It's surprising that Shockwave were able to win that out so well, but again, as 3 players, always a bit more difficult. The Nameless still trying to go toe-to-toe here with KONINA Power, who have just taken control of this southern edge. Nice nade over the top. We'll finish off 1. That looks like it's on target towards Beast. You might be able to get this first nade off, but just not in time. About, I reckon, a second he might have lived that nade.
Would have been really quite close, but the Nameless will go no further. VULGAR did manage to put everyone back on their feet in the meantime, Blank. They got shunted out and pressured, but credit to them, they've managed to stabilize.
Yeah, I think from Gladiators actually taking shots towards them, your issue comes in the sense that the way I see it, at least, is that with Titans up towards that northeast side, Gladiators sending in through the middle, PERMITTA Esports as well down towards the southeast. There's so many angles to take shots at Gladiators that it gives so much time for VULGAR Esports VULGAR Boys over towards that northwest edge to just restabilize. That is the main thing that is available to them there. I don't think it should have been as messy as it was, because they did require a lot of help from a lot of the teams to make sure they could restabilize and rejuvenate themselves into a position where they felt a little bit more comfortable. KONINA Power, though, I love the way this team plays. I mean, once they find themselves a position out on the edge, they tend to just do really good at sweeping. This spot right now, though, down the hill, it is so tough to push out of.
Yeah, that sweeping hillside that falls away from them, you can see just broadside for No Mercy Warriors. KONINA Power going to try and fight up the other way and do so well against Milky Way, finding the first opener to allow them a route out of that desperate conflict. MUERTE trying to move around this high ground now. You can see Malloy wants to suppress this rotation. Will get some shots on. Good for 1. Hits the deck. Goes for the reload. Wants to try and trade this off again. Palucci launching Ordnance. Wants to suppress the ridgeline as well. Furia moves in. Malloy close. Goes low. The DBS from the grass. Not quite landing on target for 2, but good for 1. And that leaves Furia running across the open ground now with the blue zone at his back.
Yeah, I mean, Fury's just just a disgusting player. Probably my favorite player in PMPL EU at the moment, and a pretty new player to the scene in terms of like this high level. And it's really nice just seeing him pop off time and time again. Really reliable, consistent superstar player on this squad now onto MUERTE. Titan though take shots over towards VULGAR boys. They will actually find one flush on that side whilst they're trying to deal with TUNA Esports. Now you can understand exactly why Max did pick VULGAR boys to win this game. Like, you can see the kind of control they have from this area. It's a lot of hard cover in front of them, a nice little area to control down towards that southeast side. I just don't know if VULGAR boys has it in them to win these types of matches.
Well, both VULGAR boys and PERMITTA have the chance to show us that it was just a one-off. Losing out in those final circle rotations, Blank. They are both here in the final 8 in these late circles, stage 6, as they do start to close, but it's a little bit less obvious for them. There is not such a direct glaring route that they have available to them in their future. VULGAR boys gonna have to deal with threats across the way. It looks like TUNA will be taken down with No Mercy Warriors, taking the shots from the back. Titan actually layering some ordnance down their way, so they have to hit behind the buggy, but should be all right for now.
I mean, those are some really long shots and pretty accurate as well, just lasering onto that position. They will have to make a speedy getaway right now, though, but with the wheel out from the back, they bursted just the same as that tire. Well, Gladiator is actually still in this game. Havlik will take a knock, though, from a very lovely shot coming through from Wobbly, but Matic will finish off that final player, getting Gladiators up to 2 points total. Now, I do think that it's smart that Titans are taking this approach over to the western side. It is so difficult to pass through the rocks because there's a lot of areas in there where you can hide, where you can stay safe, and where you could potentially be a very mean little target. And I'm talking about Zashipa right now from Alpha. He can have a massive influence on the way that Titans play out this game. If he's able to get a single knock, maybe a flush, that might end the run from Titans here.
They are a little bit close to the edge for comfort now, but 6 teams remain. PERMITTA, actually, given that Titans are not taking control of the center of this rock area, they don't have the outlook to the south that PERMITTA are going to be allowed to move on in. You can see they're doing that now. They're moving up to meet that crunch. So Zashipa with more and more threat around him as time goes on. 5 teams now remain. VULGAR boys and Gladiators from the western side both going to have to move.
There is actually a really good opportunity here for PERMITTA Esports. If they can send out into the circle, they don't have much time to do it, but if they can send out into the circle, pass round the rock side, which is what it looks like they're doing right now, they might be able to get the drop on Titan. I think Titan understands this, so this is one of the areas they have to really maintain control of, especially with this circle. So they're diverting all attention from Old Boy as well as Robs to this position. 2 players that are very good when it comes to reflexive gameplay, which is something I love to see here. Gladiators finally have to make their move. It is super difficult, but what? He's pierced them with the javelin coming through from the Gladiators. A collateral with the M4.
Oh my god, they just swept them down in the blink of an eye. The Gladiators breathe and they fall. The VULGAR boys do not know what just hit them. What have we just seen? God, that was incredible. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we've got to recover a little bit, Blank, because the rest of the team's still fighting for their lives. Matic and Meku, 2 fearsome warriors. Zashipa finally eliminated from the center of the rocks, and that allows Titan a little bit more freedom. Meku and Matic, can they do more?
I mean, Matic goes down, but I think he's done more than enough. This is up to a 3rd place. Robs will hit the deck, though. PERMITTA Esports still going, but another knock comes through and a good amount of damage. Gladiators are now out to Icy. I think that Titan realize they need to continue pressuring this one. It's a 3v2, sending nades down this way. It's very obvious where the spots are.
Titan moving in, looking for control around this rock side. They've had control for a while, 9 eliminations, and a couple more potentially to put on their cards. A really good point-scoring game for them if they can close this one out. PERMITTA as well, getting in late, making some solid rotations and proving that they can play these late-game Sanhoks, but Folly falls first. Next around the corner to go is Rogo, and the last is soon to follow. Titan close it down. 3 more points put on the cards as well. A really good result. 19 points on the match. And Titan are looking good towards the top of those tables.
Yeah, fantastic game coming through from Titans overall. I mean, they definitely got a little bit circle blessed towards the end there, but I think the way they controlled Painan looked really stellar. And I think that, you know, for the team, it looks like they have a lot more control over their match, right? Old Boy is not being as, I would say, bored. You know, he's not being as impulsive, which is nice to see, because he's a really good player and very good at defending the team. I will say, though, I don't know what Quizzy is doing over on coaching side for Gladiators, but I know that he's taught, like Yoda, at least one thing to Matic, which is patience, just a little bit of patience. This guy has always had so much potential, John, and I think he's really living up to it now.
I think you can teach that patience, but it takes that little X factor in the back pocket for Matic to be able to pull that one out. I think Meku did manage to get a little bit of damage in there as well. So, you know, good pair play, but definitely Matic lining it up, shutting it down. Didn't get that top spot, but certainly a play that we'll remember from this Sanhok game.
The camera. A camera, yes.
Camera. I don't want to mess with that. But honestly, I mean, Titan Gaming, they have been able to secure this win. The chicken dinner on the board, the limbs on the board, and that circle shift for them, Max. I mean, what more can you ask for your first game back?
They just left Painan, right? Winning versus KASIK team, of course, and them leaving... Ignore the predictions. Looking at Painan, they leave Painan, and outside, southwest of Painan, of course, you have that little ridge, that little hilltop position surrounded by a few rocks, which is really good to hold on to. And as Blank said towards the end of that game, they were a little bit circle blessed, but they knew how valuable their spot was, so they just kept a hold on it the entirety of that game and just got information on teams around them, applied pressure on the teams south and west of their location, and then they just started blasting at the end because they still had 4 players alive, which is so important. But you know, it doesn't really matter because Matic got that insane 1v3, like, just straight down. So that was a highlight.
I wanted to touch upon that a little bit later because we are still recovering from what we've seen. But Titan Gaming to be able to get 22 points in that first Sanhok game of the day. I mean, 12 limbs as well on a map like Sanhok. I am impressed by how the team has been performing over the last couple of days. And it is showing why Blank has put them as second favorite in his predictions for the whole season.
Really, Titan Gaming, I had questions, especially yesterday. I was like, not really the kind of like dominating performance we want to see. This is one where we know now this team, if you give them a good finishing position and they have the resources, and resources, I mean the players, 3-4 players to really execute that game plan, they're going to do it great. And I love also that they delayed them leaving their position as long as they did, because they knew the moment they leave that spot, they're going to be vulnerable to teams like Gladiators, PERMITTA if they go a little bit farther to the west. So they just held on to it as long as they possibly could, and I absolutely loved it. No early game, some weird altercations, and VULGAR boys, my predictions, I could talk a little bit about that later on, but...
No, it's okay. Get it off your chest. It's okay. You want to talk about it. What's wrong? What happened?
Okay, thank you, Ginny. I appreciate it. No, okay, we'll talk about this a little bit before, because I don't want to have my heart broken again. But Havlik, what a star player. Like, he has been doing so well. He was one of the top players yesterday, not only for Titan, but also of the entirety of first day of this first phase for Europe. And yeah, oh boy. No, definitely not taking any. He took like 1 bullet worth of damage, and that was it. He was chilling behind those massive rocks and just applying so much pressure. 4, 4, 3, and 1 limb around the board for these guys. Everyone is doing their work, all doing their job. And I'm loving how this team has been working out so far. Of course, maybe we still need to see a little bit more when circles are not coming their way.
Absolutely.
That would be the proving factor to me that they can, in fact, aim for the top and remain up there. This is a game that's a little bit like kind of catered towards Titan Gaming, but this is good to know that in those late finishing moments, they can control the lobby the way they did.
Yeah, but also as much as we like to say that maybe the circle shifts did kind of go in their favor this time around, we have had teams in a very similar position that weren't able to get the same results that Titans have. So it does speak volumes to what they're capable of doing, but you're absolutely correct. They really need to be trialed and tested. And when you're in a lobby with your MADBULLS, your Major Prize, and your Gladiators, that is going to be the case. They are coming out on top, though. I mean, Havlik with most limbs and highest damage for the room, for the whole lobby. What else can we say? Unfortunately, though, yeah, do you want to talk about your prediction now, really? Because what happened? Because we're going to be going into the highlights, and I want to use this as kind of like a springboard to discussing what exactly went wrong.
The thing is, nothing went wrong, is that nothing happened for VGD, at least when you're looking at VULGAR boys. They had so much control on the West. Of course, as already stated, the circle was going a little bit more in favor of Titan, but I don't feel like that's something that excuses everything. VULGAR boys should have been a lot more aggressive on the western side. I thought they were going to be gatekeeping one of the teams northwest. I need to go back on the map to see which team that was. SHOCKWAVE. SHOCKWAVE was right behind them, and I was expecting VULGAR boys to really be as controlling as they possibly can, gatekeeping that entire team. But they kind of got lucky in a sense because other teams like MUERTE, TUNA Esports, Gladiators, No Mercy Warriors, SHOCKWAVE were all fighting one another and eliminating the threats that would be a major issue for VULGAR boys. And that's the reason why they made it as far in the game as they actually did, is because other teams were helping them out. And I want to see VULGAR boys, if we do see them in a situation like this again, Ginny, I want to see them be aggressive, taking those shots, and oh my god, that angle coming out was mental.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen a lot more aggression this time around on Sanhok that we're used to in spring, and that speaks a lot in terms of what we can expect from the lobby. We kind of already touched upon that yesterday. The damage numbers that we've seen on Sanhok yesterday were absolutely mind-blowing, and that is without even going into our Miramars and our Erangel. So it's really shaping up to be such an exciting season, and I'm looking forward to see these newer teams creeping up to the top, giving the top 3 teams that we're very much used to reigning that top 3 position a little bit of a run for their money every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, I know that people might think sometimes, I see people in the chat say, Max, you're a little bit harsh. I mean, I feel like it's good, for me to be a little bit harsh for these guys, because it's just the start of this phase, right? And we've seen so many teams that had a rough start, a rough transition, and for teams like VULGAR boys, PERMITTA Esports, also new teams in this scene, it's important to understand what's going wrong as early as possible and to make changes in that 4-day break. So I'm hoping they can try and change their approach, because they have potential to really aim for the top.
Yeah, the overalls as well, with that one, Titan Gaming do manage to put themselves into that top 3 position, tied with Gladiators. So it is going to be the question of, can Gladiators consistently show up, likewise for Titan to be able to stick to that position that they have. And MADBULLS, I mean, they haven't played, so you're not going to be able to see much of an increase in that cushion that they have. But next game is going to show us what they're in for today.
Yeah, Titan are going to have a little break after this game, so they might be caught back up by teams like Alpha Team, maybe.
Yeah,
Major
maybe.
Pride, who knows? But Major Pride, Gladiators, MADBULLS, they're all going to be playing in this next game. So that's going to make it very interesting to see how things are going to be unfolding for these guys. KONINA Power, no. I also want to see how they're going to be playing things out. They played that first game, not quite the Sanhok that we used to see them perform in spring. Though, for this game, we're going to see then, as you already stated, MADBULLS are going to be playing. I'm going to have the comeback of NEXUS, VIRTUS.PRO, and Unicorns of Love. NEXUS, I want to see this being the initiation of their comeback. I want to see them. So, I mean, it's still only 1 day's worth of games they played, so it's maybe a bit early to ask for a comeback.
It racks up.
The thing is, we saw what this team could do back in spring, and I want to see what is going to be the main team. Are we going to see EXO playing again? Are we going to see Redux just stay on the team? I'm not sure. So I want to see what's going to be unfolding for NEXUS, because there's a lot of questions left unanswered.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it yourself, like, just day 1, right? It's only been 1 day. Really, can we be this harsh? But at the same time, it does like rack up. It adds up, having 1 off day here and 1 off day there, whilst teams like Gladiators and the way that they have been approaching the game, Max, as you highlighted earlier on with your lovely contemporary art demonstration. This is the circle. This is where they're playing. And because of that new adaptation that we've seen from the... Oh, there we go. Contemporary art. That looks like a donut, actually. A little bit. They have consistently been able to get these points on the board, and if that is something that Gladiators is going to continue doing throughout the entirety of the season, when you're having a couple of off days, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult. But that's enough from us here on the desk and our speculations and how we think this is going to be playing out, because we're going to be heading over to our casters, Blank and John, who are going to give you the cold hard facts as the games unfold. So let's head over.
I like it. Cold, hard facts. That's what we're all about here, Blank. We are ready to deliver the goods on Erangel. We are looking for some more great games, because I feel like we've been treated so far. What a play at the end of that game. Oh, man, I'm looking forward to the rest of this as well.
Yeah, I think today is, well, even yesterday was really good as well for PMPL EU. And you know what? I like that Max is being harsh on the desk. He's becoming like the coach that everyone in EU sort of needed in a way. So I genuinely think that he's a smart guy. He's a smart guy. I will put it that way, all right? So I think if there's any players, you know, maybe want to watch back the show, maybe get some tips and tricks for him, that's fine. You should absolutely do that. I think that he gives good advice a lot of the time.
He's a smart man. He's a smart cookie, is our Max. I think he was drawing a couple of those cookies, of one big chocolate chip on his cookie on the on the diagrams. But still, I'd eat that.
Yeah, his cursed drawings that makes the entire room dark. And he's got some dark powers, that's Max, but I think he left them in the past a long, long time ago. Looking at the map, though, at the moment, John, let's take a quick, cheeky peek at this one, because we are heading over from the northwest side over towards the Povka. It's a little bit tough here, John. Obviously, we are cutting out a majority of space down this side of the map at the moment. Even Sosnovka, very difficult to head towards. So some of these main vehicles that will be absolutely wanted are over towards this side on Box Compound, which Major Pride are already picking up in the process. MUERTE is going to be fairly happy with this one, being able to pick up their spot towards the Povka. There is a chance that we are going to have some fights engaging down here on this side of the map, because you will have a couple of teams instantly sending towards Veripir and Primorsk in this moment of time. So I do worry for some of the teams that want to head down that way. In the meantime, though, I think most teams can get where they'd like to be. I do think that perhaps it might be an interesting factor for a lot of these teams, especially in this position right now in Yasnaya, Poliana, because we do have Dark Project challenging SBG for that position right now.
Hard northeast circle as well. So the legs on this challenge have got quite a way to go. They can stay for a little bit, but a lot of teams are going to be prioritizing getting on into the areas to the east of Yasnaya fields. That gas station out to the west side of those fields is going to be really important for controlling a couple of those rotations. Maybe just the foothills of Stalber as well. Priority positions for these first set of rotations. Teams out on that southeast side, potentially the easiest to gain access to a lot of those spots, Blank, with you can see a lot of them looking to congregate fairly close to each other. That MUERTE drop split right now for VIRTUS.PRO, but they'll be able to regroup and figure out where they want to go from here.
I think looking at the map, I think the most interesting thing to me right now, John, is probably Major Pride's position with Dino. I think he's either in box or he's in Wizard Tower over towards the crossing that goes from Crates over towards the north side of the map towards Severny. If he's in Wizard Tower, I think that's probably his best bet. You know, he's going to get looted from Box Compound, head to Wizard, get some information from teams crossing over towards that north side, which is going to make the lives of the rest of the Major Pride players a lot easier in the long run, you know, because you understand that at some point you will have to rotate up the top side. With that sort of circle, or that playing path, you're going to have a massive amount of teams just on this sort of hammock down towards the south side, just all in this nice lazy line through ruins to shelter to prison to Lipovka. So I do think for Major Pride, having Dino here is fairly important to get the information early. No one's crossed early, so I think maybe a Northern Island rotate could be on the cards here for Major Pride.
Have to wait and see. Dino down and regrouping in ruins with Naomi. Dark Project sending very, very fast over into Stalber at the top of the hill now. Looking for control of the north side there. Nobody else making early breaks, but Dark Project leaving that Yasnaya engagement. SBG can breathe a little easier. The Nameless in Severny, they've got a pretty good set of rotational paths available to them. And here's that Major Pride position you were talking about, Blank. Dino moving back from those compounds out on the northwest side. Looks like potentially that they're just going to try and swing straight on through, because Nomi is all the way down southeast.
Yeah, I think this is a bit of an odd rotate. I think genuinely over towards the north side would have been better for them.
Black-white.
Don't think they'll be too worried about the north side. They will have seen the shoots as they went down. Dino would be able to provide a lot of information back across as well. And it looks like they are going to head back up that way towards Box Compound. So I'm glad I'm right, because it is the smart play for them to go for. And I think that right now Major Pride is looking like a very intelligent team when it comes to rotations, when it comes to those positions to pick up. They do make some surprising plays that I don't really see coming a lot of times, but they often work out. So I do like the way Major Pride's currently playing, and they deserve to be where they are currently in the tables. I think they could go even a little bit further if they wanted to. A lot of times it is just some of these small team fight errors, like losing to SHOCKWAVE. Obviously that is something that will come through, but losing so quickly was slightly saddening to see. Again, it's a 3v4, so it's sort of to be expected.
It's not always the easiest to make happen, but a team like Major Pride, as you say, intelligent, with a track record, they should be able to pull that one out. Hopefully, they'll be able to gather a little bit more momentum. I think the majority of us all had them in our top 3, and we definitely expect great things from this roster. Still, very early days. We're only in day 2. This is match, I think, 6 for them on their tournament. We've played 5 yesterday, and this is the 2nd match today. They set out 1, so yeah, it will be the 6th match that they're playing. So still very much early days in the course of this entire tournament. Now, remember, they had a phenomenal run during league stages last season.
Yeah, so they're going to head even further, right, over towards the eastern side, and they're going to take the compound just to south of Stalba. Has a really nice lookout down towards the south side, which is sort of covered off by hard cover with the rocks in that spot. So it's a really good spot for Major Pride to pick up nice and early. Gives them a huge amount of information early on as well. So I really like this move coming through from Major Pride at the start of the game. I think the reason I didn't put them in my top 3 is because, yeah, I think they did well last spring split. I think that they fell off a little bit in terms of just being able to play smartly, which is funny because I'm going back on what I'm saying around them being an intelligent team. They would often lose players in the early game. They would be down to 3, down to 2. They felt a bit uncoordinated towards those finals as well. I think right now their rotations are looking a lot better. But as a team, I think they're still developing. That's right now. That's all right. They're in the cocoon stage at the moment. So maybe this won't be a massive big finish over in the finals, but I think if Major Pride stick together on this, they can definitely surprise me in the finals. They can definitely surprise us even in future international tournaments.
Will they remain a chrysalis or become the big, beautiful butterfly that we know that they were meant to be in this tournament? Their regional clashes, I think you're right, they didn't really do them justice as to the strength we believe of this roster. Hopefully, we'll see what they can do here. The Gladiators and MUERTE both moving now pretty close to that Major Pride position in the south side of the Stalba Hills. Those foothills, obviously a strong position. SPG yet to leave Yasnaya Polyana. They will be playing on the south side of it as well, so not really looking out towards the north. It's unlikely that any teams move into that north side until the circle shrinks, if it does shrink, towards the settlement. So they aren't super worried. They're more concerned about controlling all of these teams rotating in from the south side of them.
That would have been a really nice pickup if they'd actually hit those shots over towards Nomi. If they'd been able to do that, I think they could have safely assumed that they could try and challenge out for that compound and the rocky outcrops up towards that north side. But for MADBULLS, they'll have to chill down towards the south side a little bit longer. Does leave them a little bit worried because there should be a lot of teams coming towards this plateau as well. It's fairly flat ground. Those type of team fights can quickly spill over into having several teams around your location. And I do want to talk about Gladiators very quickly as we see this crazy shift up towards the northern side. So we do have Stalba very much still in play. But yeah, for Gladiators now, I would imagine a fast send, right? And I think that this is changing a lot the way they're playing, especially getting this new coach in. I think that what they've decided to do is something that I've been like imploring to do for a long time, which is just they're a great team. They just need to have a bit more confidence in themselves and just take these central spots that should be free at the end of the day. They should be free. They should be available. And if they're not, Gladiators as a team should also be able to challenge for them. And I think they've been doing that a lot more frequently. Yes, they've been losing players on the approach for it, but overall they've been getting way more consistent points. It used to be a case of we'd see Gladiators play a lot of edge play. They would get these games where they get 1 to 2 points, but then they would get a big chicken dinner, 27 points coming through. This time around, we're not seeing as many of those chicken dinners that are absolutely stupendous, but what we are seeing is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 points from a lot of their games.
Rolling on up, it's now MUERTE and Major Pride. Can Major Pride hold this one together this time? Naomi down in a trade 1-for-1. Low HP bars coming through, but they've already managed to dispatch one of MUERTE. I think Milky Way went down earlier in the match, but Naomi getting flushed out there as well. Furia with the nade, but Black White sneaks up the staircase behind him and does the job. Plenty fine. Naomi did get flushed, so they are down to 3, and there's plenty more people waiting in the wings to move into that area. VIRTUS.PRO have sent up SBG as well, have made their move. It's all chaos in the Stalba foothills. SBG and Gladiators are rolled straight on up into this compound. If Major Pride weather this storm, it'll be a miracle. Get the raincoats on, lads. It's going to be a long one. Meku around the side of the wall for Narvalo, looking for the nade and eats a little bit too much damage for his liking, but slips away, slithers around, does get knocked, but gets across. Matic launching nades in, but there's 3 teams operating in this area. Major Pride have the top floor, and the Gladiators are taking hella damage right now. Kitsune the last to stand in the face of SBG. Snowick's the only knock-in response. Dino isolated from Major Pride, but there's 2 players on the upstairs. Will look for the flush, and they still have that upstairs threat.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of push that we kind of expected to come through. I didn't expect it to be so many third parties, one after another. I mean, we had 4 teams all trying to take this location away from Major Pride. Gladiators hears the fighting, tries to get stuck into it, but SBG's a little bit closer from their starting position over in Yasnaya. And Gladiators will just have to send away from this. It's not really worth it anymore to stick around. They can most likely go up some stages towards Stalba, try and live this game out just a bit longer. Now, Valo is down, will be rezzed here. Victor continues to toss those smokes down, provide them a bit of cover, but he will just have to continue peeking the stairway with the DBS.
The Nameless also on the northern side, you can see them now starting to look for this third-party engagement. The MADBULLS out on the east are close by enough to go for a third party. Major Pride descend the staircase, trade 1-for-1, and now it's just 2 players left for SBG as Alex falls, as Narvalo and Nomi take the upstairs position. The Nameless, the 5th team to enter this compound. Who is going to be able to take this one down? Because it still maintains importance on the northwest side of this next circle shift. It is vitally important for a team to be able to hold this high ground. You could see the oversight it has against the MADBULLS, and Narvalo wants to keep it in the control of SBG, but he is denied that chance. And finally, some quiet, some peace here, but for how much longer? Because Dagestan have entered on the western side.
Man, this is absolutely a position where Narvalo could have popped off, maybe got the 1v4. But yeah, so many teams trying to take this spot just because it provides so much benefit to you in the long run, especially looking down towards a lot of these teams. That is a gorgeous shot coming through from Keep. A nice little headshot to start things off, leaves a hole bearing through the Nameless. And now it will be Zadira, Shifu, all descending.
The 6th team blank. Everybody wants a piece of this one. Mango cooking the nade on the close approach. Zadira puts one up on the top of the balcony, wants to burn this one away, and Shifu able to get ahead of the game on that one. Another nade popped in through those little slit windows around the side as Zadira wants to keep that burn going. Hate Most down on Nate. Needs to try and stay alive, but will not be allowed to do so. Mango bursted away, and Beast in the side room. Madagod absolutely launched away there with some lovely high nades, and Keep ascends the staircase, but decides, hang on a minute, there's some steps in that side room. We're going to clear that one out first. He hops out the window, tries to get out of there, but down the hill and into the fire you go. Excellently picked up by Dagestan, and the 6th team finally takes control of the compound.
You know, honestly, if we look at the amount of teams that have gone out, we're down to 11, right? I think all 11 of the teams that have left the game are teams that have challenged for this position, barring KONINA Power, who took a very odd rotate down towards Sosnovka very early on. I don't think that was necessary. I think they could have maybe played a secondary drop spot there, but every other team has suffered to this compound over towards this northwest side. Maxa from Unicorn to Love does send some nades out towards Doran, see if he can hit this nade over towards the top side.
Nexus going in for the crash, the high ground position from Kapahala as well. He's moving out to the east side here. Maxa locked into this corner with Woodson, not really able to do too much to slow down the staircase. Redox, oh, the cook just a little bit too long there for Maxa. Has to heal up a little bit from that. Repositions, wants to burn that staircase, and once again, forced up onto the wall there. So a little sneaky angle that potentially isn't going to get found, but no, Redox sees it. Maxa does fall, and now it's just Woodson.
I mean, some quick movement from Max today. You've got to respect the fact that he was able to get onto the balcony so quickly. Woodson finds one on towards Octavian, but they're not messing around. They'll finish him off with the nade here. They want to clear this one up quickly. They know they've got a while to go in terms of the circle as we head up towards that northern side. Now, there's a couple of compounds that are very, very decent. Gladiators actually find one of them over towards this eastern side, and KASIK take the other. Now, Gladiators playing as two might be quite difficult to hold this one out, but it certainly might give them a high placing finish, which is what they're always looking for. Over on this north side, there's a massive amount of teams that still need to descend downwards. Dark Project, as we saw earlier in the game, sent up to Stalbert very, very early on and actually headed even further towards Kameshki side. So they've been trying to stay out of the action. They realized how many teams would be here quite soon. I think the main reason we're seeing so many third parties goes straight back to that hammock analogy from earlier. It was such a lazy line through the middle. It also meant so many teams were in such close proximity that hearing these third parties and getting involved on these third parties was very, very tempting. Too tempting, one might say.
Dark Project sent very early up to the north side. I was skeptical about going all the way to the north side of Stalber when that first hard shift came through, but that second time it went their way, I mean, it's played out so well from them. And now they're going to have to push down the east side. This is where it gets a little bit trickier for them. The MADBULLS sit ahead of them. On that south push from Dark Project, they've got No Mercy Warriors out to their west as well. You can see them looking to move down. The MADBULLS need to try and hold on to this one because it is not going to be easy to outlast the Gladiators in their prime compound. They'll need to crash it.
Yeah, I mean, as two players, though, for Gladiators, this is what I'm talking about, that it's going to be difficult for them to hold it. I think it's made easier by the amount of teams that are all cresting down this way. Tixi, though, as well as the other players on Gladiators, will have to immediately start taking shots over towards that position. Kitsune has really improved his gun skill as of recently, so they need to flex out. They need to spread their wings in this territory. Taking a couple of shots, injuring some of these players would be ideal before they even make it towards their spot. It's one of the best positions right now for them to be holding out as two because it's flat ground all around them. Teams would need to expend a lot of resources just for two players, in which case, is it even worth it?
I mean, we had Matic and Meku on the Gladiators going deep into the Sanhok game. This time, it's Tixi and Kitsune. So everyone's getting a turn on the Gladiators roster to prove their mettle, to show that they've still got what it takes. MADBULLS taking the fight downhill. Ivaneska nearly getting that knock, but not quite finding the final lick. Unfortunately, Tulika looking for that heal. A nade uphill from Ivaneska might be allowed to take the tag there, but no, gets away. And Tulika now a little bit more healthy. The descent yet to be orchestrated, though.
Yeah, for MADBULLS, again, this is what I'm talking about. The plateau that just hits as you move down this hillside is absolutely grim for a lot of these teams. Basically warrants the entry of the Grim Reaper into the match itself. Now, NEXUS try and take this position on the south side. They've done really good to get this far into the game. I mean, it's not been an easy push for them. Redox sends over the top with the DBS, attempts to get a little bit of damage done. This is difficult to nade out. There's so many places you can hide in the trenches here.
Kapahala all the way on the south side. Not going to regroup just yet, but they are finally going to move on in and get a little bit more safety here. Very, very difficult to make it work, but Aztec underarming the nade needs to try and survive the last player standing for No Mercy Warriors. Octavian has a nade. The cook is quite long. I think they know that he's around this area. Send the vehicle down. Did manage to get a heal off for Aztec, and Octavian moving on in, potentially caught in the fire here with the UMP in hand, hiding for the time being, but I'm sure it's only a matter of time. Fleek in the meantime, 4 MADBULLS last to fall and will leave them eliminated. They could not descend.
No, it was very hard. I mean, a 4v3 as well, with the amount of nades that Dark Project was packing, because they've not been engaged in a lot of these team fights for quite some while. NEXUS, though, a really good push here. They were very careful in the way they cleared out these trenches, which is good to see. I mean, it gets a little bit naughty in this area at times, so you do have to be very safe and collected in terms of your approach onto this one. Dark Project are just healing, right? They're all on the beds at the moment. They're on the deathbeds right now, and they're trying to get back up to position. This is what I'm talking about. You have to take shots outwards. Kitsune and Tixi must defend this one, but Tixi already down. That might just be curtains.
Kitsune, though, he's still going. With that DBS on the inside, he's managed to take care of business against one here, finding a second knock as well. Looks for a third around the corner. Kitsune, pop it off. You talked about his gun skill. I think that was a little bit of backup from Dark Project or KASIK across the way, but either way, my goodness me, what a rattle down. Beautiful stuff from Kitsune.
I mean, this is exactly what they needed to do, right? Which is they needed to take shots as soon as someone tried to crest over towards this compound, which is very, very smart at the end of the day. Yes, Tixi goes down, but I think he's done enough damage for Kitsune to finish off the job. And that will drop them up to 4 eliminations total, which is great to see. Kitsune needs to continue pressuring over towards Dark Project. It needs to be absolutely brutal as they try and get in so that they feel like they're going to get slashed down towards the south side. So if they can continue to get shot at, they're actually not even going to challenge over towards the north side. It's one dude, but he feels like a whole team.
So difficult to extricate with the positions currently held. I did predict Dagestan. I thought that crash was going to be successful, but I was proved very wrong. Unfortunate, but will the Gladiators be able to survive with just that Lone Ranger? Dark Project over the top. Tenchik, nade in hand. All 4 players still alive from Dark Project. They managed to move down from that northeast side effectively. Tenchik low, but answers and gets the knock as well. Mandarin launching out. Another burn as well to slow things down, to curtail this crossing. They can get the res, and Dark Project want to invest in it.
Yeah, currently off just a little bit, but a nice airburst. That's what Mandarin's been looking for that entire time. The Project,
wow.
One more player, and now it's just the final from Dark Project left alive and forced. We'll try and move up. Right now, Alpha's playing a pretty dangerous and nasty 2-2 split, but it's working out. It's very difficult to assault these compounds, especially directly on the edge, and Mandarin's happy to pick up some more elimination points. Alpha will be pleased with this one. This will cement them towards the top side of the table once again.
Nexus are doing a lot, though, this match. They're 11 eliminations deep on the game so far, and they want to try and climb their way further up those tables, because right now, the results they've had not been as illustrious as they could have been. Look at this open up on the side swipe. Tulika and Frozen just did not have an answer. They managed to get that reverse knock, but will not have the staying power to stop even Eska moving on forwards. It's pretty close to the wire, though, so the 2 players from MADBULLS did give them a run for their money. However, Dark Project still going just about with the 1 player left.
Yeah, down to a 1v1. I think MADBULLS could have certainly won that one out. I think Fleek will be a bit upset with himself. That should have been a pretty free elimination towards their side. Alpha Team has a lot of their vehicles still in tow, which is really good to see. I mean, they took some very defensible compounds, held onto these vehicles. They can be very valuable in this endgame, considering there's absolutely no compounds still available to a lot of these teams to play. Nexus right now is just trying to get as much information as possible. But as Alpha Team breaches over the ridge side, they're quite split at the moment. It could quite easy to be picked off 1 by 1.
Tenchik over the hillside now. 4 players active for Alpha as they make their bid to control the hillside. Octavian rotating around to catch any sneaky back angles. Mandarin pulls the pin once more, drops a smoke out. I think Octavian knows there's someone behind that ridgeline, but he just can't quite find it. Ghillie suit hopefully keeping him nice and healthy. Steps up though, and Mandarin now a little bit more exposed. They baited out a couple of those shots, and Nexus can readjust around it. 11 eliminations, and look how healthy they're all looking. Octavian only taking damage to the blue zone there, so not really anything to worry about. KASIK in the meantime on the east flank, they're spreading out, they're establishing a line.
Yeah, they got a gorgeous amount of utility too on this side, even in terms of meds. And Nexus, what they really need to make sure they do is get a single knock. Doran obviously moves forward, doesn't want to go too far. That's what's ruined him the first time, but reflecting the backside, will find at least 1 knock. Will try to go for some more, but Redox is able to take him down. A really crucial knock there on the backline member of Alpha.
And in a position to get the res as well. Nexus can stay alive. Mandarin still operating forwards with that nade in hand. Tenchik is low, and Octavian has not spotted him in the grass. He's going to stay hidden for now, but hits the deck, and Octavian just swivels around. Nexus are on the warpath, picks up both of those points, and looks for the flush. On the hillside, Reflect got rezzed, but only Zashipa and Reflect now remain standing for the roster. 5 eliminations for Alpha, and the nades being cooked by Octavian and Kapahala. They're looking to launch them over the top of the hillside. side here and find those knocks. Reflect hops around the back for a little bit of a cheeky reposition up to the high ground. Drops that nade down the hill, but Sashipa's already dispatched. Will find Doran in the meantime, but Redox is there for that refrag. Reflect now up for the challenge against Kapahala, but penned into the tower. Nothing doing there. Goes down to the zone, and that's Alpha down.
That's a really, really strong and clean finish coming through from NEXUS. Up to 14 eliminations so far. They get the circle too. This is really excellent stuff. For Kitsune, they're up to a 4th place finish. Once again, this is what Gladiators are good at, is consistently getting these points on board. This is the type of playstyle that's just going to win them tournaments, regardless of whether it looks flashy or not. As long as they can leverage these positions and be confident in themselves, this is how they win tournaments massively. KASIK team, they're down towards the low ground. I think they could have maybe got involved on this engagement much, much earlier, but were unwilling to remove themselves from the center of the circle. This type of shift, though, really does ruin their chances. They're going to have to just wait this out now for the time being, John. I don't think they can afford to push into this circle itself. They want it to close in stage 9, so it pushes these guys off the top side.
Oh, Octavian just about gets away from Force, the last player from Dark Project. He managed to get, I think there was a smoke out as well. So we'll have a little bit of cover. The nade over high might actually tag Octavian if it goes long enough. No, the hills are going to keep him safe. And the heal does come through as well for Octavian. Forced only a matter of time before he falls down. Potential 3rd place ladder up as well for Kitsune, but he's under pressure from KASIK team because they know exactly where he is. Octavian puts the nade around the side of the tree, and there it is. Dark Project eliminated. 3 teams remain, Blank.
Kitsune, again, Gladiators, another 3rd place on the match. He will make the immediate run out. It's unlikely he's going to keep going. Now we're into a full team fight. 2 teams against one another, KASIK versus NEXUS. As they send White, a 2-2 split here. Very smart, especially when they have the high ground advantage. Realistically, KASIK team need to get straight towards that hard cover. Skills just goes down. It is the worst thing possible. They needed that off angle. Now it's just 2 players left remaining, and this should be done and dusted for NEXUS.
He hopped out the wrong side of the vehicle there, Blank. Needed to get back in and hop out on that passenger side, but didn't swap those seats fast enough. Ingush goes down next, and they're not even looking at Octavian. He's lighting them up in the meantime. Doran and Redox are more than happy to mulch them to pieces. NEXUS, a dominant performance on Erangel. 25 points on the match, a chicken dinner, and a whole helping up that table.
Wonderful game coming through from NEXUS. 17 eliminations, really, really strong match. A difficult position on the south side as well, but I think they took every single one of their fights very, very decently, right? Super controlled in where they wanted to be and how they basically won a lot of those engagements. I think Doran as well learned from yesterday way too far forward a lot of times. Yes, today though, he is much more going for the option to pull back, to retreat after he gets that single knock, which I think is really helping the team in a big way.
But like you said as well, the Gladiators putting in those shits, getting those non-flashy, fairly dirty, grubby little points on their tables. But that is, as you say, what wins tournaments. Will they be able to keep that run alive? We'll have to wait and see. But NEXUS, huge points on that game.
NEXUS getting huge points indeed, Max, and that's exactly something that we were looking for. Coming into the game, you even said it. You're like, okay, NEXUS is playing this game. I want to see them get themselves out of the bottom of that leaderboard, the bottom of the overall standings, and crawl it back. And they really said, yo, Max, you know what? We're going to do you a solid. We're going to crawl out of the bottom of the overall table, and we're going to give you a correct prediction.
I like to see it. Now, I said maybe it's a bit early to ask for a comeback, but they're like, no, it's about time we start a comeback, and they do it right away here on the first round, well, the first and last Erangel of the day. But so glad to see it. And this is, in a weird way, similar to what we saw them do back in PMRC MEA versus Europe, where they had this like big 24 elimination game, but the rest of the tournament was just mid. And here they just pop off. They do it really early on in the tournament, which you love to see. 28 pointer gain, 18 more points than the second place team of KASIK team. That is so impressive from them. I do have some gripes with how things were played, right? I do have to say, Ginny right off the bat, but
yes,
when they started regrouping closer towards the late game, they were so good at reacting to teams trying to get a better angle on top of them. Especially you saw at the end where Skills S from KASIK team tried to go for that off angle. It was punished, and then NEXUS, especially Octavian's like, your off angle? off angle and just gets the position, and there's just no escape for KASIK team. So yeah, good from Nexus Gaming, and I just hope we can see more of this Nexus Gaming, because that is the confidence we need to see coming out from this squad.
Yeah, and they've done it early, so it's something that hopefully they'll be able to continuously do throughout the rest of the season. We're seeing Gladiators show up as well on that top 3, so they have been consistent, but we're looking towards the bottom of the table. The MUERTE, KONINA, Power, I think these are the teams that we were also saying that we wanted to see them show up. We were also saying we want to see the MUERTE in the real, true the MUERTE fashion that we've seen in spring. We want to see KONINA, Power show up consistently rather than just a flash in the pan. But unfortunately, this was not the map. Maybe the next Miramar iteration might be it for these teams, but that's going to have to be a question that remains to be answered. But you're looking at Octavian for NEXUS with 8 limbs under his belt. That's, yes, exactly, that reaction. That's absolutely. I don't know how else to put it. That was perfectly said.
That's just yes.
Yes.
That's all we have to say is yes. 8 eliminations for Octavian. What an insane conversion rate from that. Almost 1,000 damage on the game into 8 limbs. That is ludicrous. And Octavian, I was a little bit scared sometimes because he was trying to clear off fights versus TUNA, versus Alpha Team, versus like the remnants of some other squads on the West. He went a bit solo. I would have preferred to see duo pushes just to avoid taking that extra bit of risk. But it's Octavian. He was just feeling himself. He was feeling in the zone, you might say. So he was just able to overwhelm the competition on the West very easily. And you can see the instant those 3 teams of TUNA, Alpha Team, and Dark Project die on the West, they just start to be so much more aggressive because they know they cannot get backstabbed in that position. So really glad for Nexus and how they played it out. But also, really, to give respect to Blank, his prediction of KASIK team was also pretty on point. They were a really passive team, but they were really aware of how things were going down in this game, so they were trying their best to get good positions and maybe, who knows, snatch away a win.
Yeah, maybe not the win that they snatched away, and unfortunately also not on the top damage dealers, but the difference between Nexus and Alpha Team in terms of the damage dealt and the eliminations gathered on the board is an absolute day and night.
I mean, yeah.
80,
we're not going to... I can't, but even I, who can't do math, can tell you that is absolutely bonkers from these guys. Really impressive. Though I do feel bad for SPG, Ginny, because we saw their compound get breached, and then they had like 30 seconds, and they got breached again, and they had a few seconds to come back. And then Dagestan breached it, wrapped up the fight. I mean, he wasn't even against SPG at that point because SPG were dead, but they just had no break whatsoever. And we saw, actually, who was it? Gladiators go for the push really early on, which was interesting. I do think that Gladiators, despite their game plan being, as we saw, really successful, and they're really good at their salvage missions, when they do not, unfortunately, have a strong early rotation, they just are down to like 2 players, 1 player sometimes, they go straight center and survive as long as they can, which is what Kitsune's done. He keeps doing it every single time. And they, because of that, even their bad games pretty much get good points, right, Ginny? So that is the main threat of Gladiators. It's even when you think it's all done and dusted, all hope is lost, they can bring it back a little bit and just salvage a few points to stay relevant on the rankings.
Yeah, they have what it takes to stay consistent, but also we're seeing Gladiators, as you mentioned earlier today, Max, that they continuously drop towards the middle, and it feels like other teams are now adapting it, which to me then brings the question, what can Gladiators do to deal with other players dropping in middle as well? Do they need to change their tactic? Do they need to stick around the middle? What swaps can we expect to see?
For Gladiators, I would say you could compare it to Vampire and how they were playing back in PMWI. You want to do that rotation on phase 1, and they tend to do it on phase 2, transitioning into phase 3. The thing is, at that point, a lot of the central compounds are occupied. I want to see them, if they want to keep going for this playstyle, which has been so far successful, you need to pull the trigger so much quicker. That means off the back of that, you need to drop really quickly, get your loot, get the cars, and instantly go for those POIs in the center of the circle straight away on phase 1. If you don't do so, we saw it there, SPG were occupying that compound and you lose 2 players, and then you instantly go into salvage mission on phase 2. Fair to say that's not the game plan they're looking for. They want to try and make things work out from the get-go. So a little bit early on the move, I think that could make them just not only get consistent points, but also get those big winning performances we'd love to see.
Yeah, speaking of the compound as well, I mean, I don't think SPGs particularly expected the amount of teams to just try and take over that compound. What happened there? What is the strategy that we're expecting these teams to be running with?
Well, for SPG, it's really easy to explain. They go in compound center, compound good, teams understand compound good, team breach compound. And then it's a whole mess because
And,
I mean, I think John said there was 6 teams. I thought there were 5 teams. Apparently there was 6 teams. So it's even more than what I thought. 6 teams, that's insane in one position. And I feel like some squads understood, okay, this is a bit of a mess. Let's just leave it be. We're just going to, we're out of here. We're on the exit.
Yeah, we're out here.
Which I get it. But Dagestan, as always, they're just waiting on the western side and they wait for the fight to just slow down, wait for the teams to like kind of be at their weakest, and that's when they re-engage, eliminate the team that was remaining at the time, and then they have full control of the northwest high ground. So I'm really liking the approach of Dagestan 77. It's just they struggle with that late game transition, and here they pushed as a 4v2 in Gladiators and got absolutely obliterated, Ginny. So yeah, Dagestan got to be a bit smoother for the late game stage.
Yeah, a little bit of wrinkles that need to be ironed out, and they will do so because they have the time for it. Again, it's only day 2, and we're seeing Gladiators very quickly creeping up to MADBULLS in terms of the difference in points. I mean, MADBULLS started off today with 55 in total, so only gathering 2 points from that last game does kind of put a question mark on how the rest of the day is going to be going for them, considering that they were in the leaderboard, they had a 20-point advantage, they were sitting very comfortably. Titan and Alpha team, I mean, them creeping up in the top 3 and 4, I'm absolutely loving to see it. But you're looking towards the second page, Max, and there's your KONINA Power, there's your MUERTE, teams that we don't necessarily want to see on this side of things.
For sure. I mean, they only got himself, like, actually, no excuse. They got 6 games played. I was going to say 5, but no, they got 6. So we need to see more. Placement points for MUERTE are really low. We know that MUERTE, what makes them stand out is their elimination points. We saw that back in PMRC Africa versus Europe. Like, they have that fragging power, but that fragging power is useless if you don't make it into the late game. So we just need to see MUERTE be a little bit careful because they lose players on the rotate, 1, 2 players, and then instantly if you lose a player in the first few minutes of the game, your chances of a win are just wrecked. So we need to see them improve on that.
All right, something to improve on, but we also have you with Telestration, so you can show us what we need to improve on or what the teams have done that they can improve on. Yeah,
I'm not going to be talking about the winning team of Nexus. I want to focus this time around onto KASIK team, more specifically, and I'm just going to zoom in the circle with this new tool. Like, oh, I love this. This is great.
Ooh.
HD, we've been catching things in 4K here. But if you're looking at the team here, you're going to have one pivotal fight. You're looking at Alpha team fighting versus Nexus. All of this engagement, of course, is going to make a lot of noise. You're going to be fully aware of how things... Oh, wait. Let me zoom back in. There you go. We're going to see this fight unfolding, and one thing that I love about this is that KASIK team, in a similar way to Dagestan, hear the fight instantly. Send it into the central position. Ingush is the one to initiate that push, gets over to the crate position. You're going to see later on that SkillsS is going to try and push in a similar fashion, followed up by Unicorns. This is the perfect timing to do so when teams are just so focused fighting one another. Nexus Alpha team are not looking your way, so you can gain that control in the center of the circle. And this is something I would say anyone could apply, not only in competitive, but also in your own matches. If you are not in a great position and you hear a fight happening on the other side, chances are that is the best time for you to be on the move, because not that much focus is going to be thrown your way. And you can see here, Nexus were taking shots at KASIK team, but because there was only one player shooting, they were still focused on Alpha team. They didn't have the firepower to obliterate KASIK team on the move. So that's it. KASIK team, good reaction time. Unfortunately, SkillsS was not able to get the off angle at the end of the match, but it's still some really strong execution. And I just hope we can see more of this KASIK team, because they're currently low on the rankings. They need to start popping off soon.
Yeah, this could be what they need, a little extra boost in their morale to get it going. But we're going to be heading into our third map already of today. We have Miramar coming up next with John and Blank.
We are indeed going over into Miramar, Blank. We've had hard shifts, we've had pop-off showings from the teams so far today already. What will Miramar have in store?
I mean, to be honest with you, yesterday Miramar was quite an interesting map. We had a lot of very much like strange endings, with teams heading over towards compound finishes, with some teams actually heading over towards other teams to try and finish them off early on. It was very much a difficult map for a lot of teams to make the correct play on, especially when we headed down towards Puerto and some of the high ground in that area. I think some teams were a little bit nervous to take it. MADBULLS certainly struggled over on the eastern side of Impala, that's to be sure, before actually ending up taking the high ground. Maybe they could have taken it earlier. Zerich was very much concerned with that road, but I think for MADBULLS, they'll assume that some of those rotations are just not coming through on the eastern road down towards the east side of Miramar. So I think that for them, they'll be a little bit more comfortable in their approach to these games. We get another southeast shift on the circle jump.
We had this plane path in the first Miramar yesterday, but sort of the other way around, Blank. So these teams should be a little bit researched in these drop spots. Maybe a different set of teams, but we'll be looking out for any points of early conflict, as you were saying. That's what kind of showed up in yesterday's matches. We'll have to wait and see, though. It looks like Gladiators might have Dark Project in and amongst them, but Gladiators, no, they're falling a little bit shorter, playing La Cobraria and the shifts out to the southeast. Potential for some of Shockwave to get into trouble with them, but Meku's isolated as well. Potential little 1v1 there, but shouldn't be too much to worry about on that north side if they can just all regroup and look for those vehicles.
Yeah, Dark Project most likely going to be heading down towards El Pozo in the first place. Gladiators back to old antics, over towards La Cobraria. Very, very much, it's been a long time since we've seen that. It's not been a long time since we've seen this circle, on the other hand, as we continuously try and force our way down here. So again, another circle that's got a lot of water in play. Very rare that you actually see this happen a lot on Miramar, considering the majority of the map is landmass, right? So again, we are going to have a bit of a crunch happening. Always difficult in this area of the map to play in. There's only a few compounds are available, and down towards that south side of Minas Generales, you just have a huge amount of fielded area with few compounds that are good to play in. So if we continue heading down towards the southeast, a lot of teams are going to get caught up in these engagements once again, where you can't exactly find that center position because you're far too busy fighting against other teams.
It will be tricky. Not a lot of time. Fortunately, the plane path did start on that northwestern side as opposed to yesterday's match where it started on that southeast side, which means that the teams who dropped out early are the teams on the northwest edge, so they'll have a little bit more time to loot and get some of that gear on board, figure out their path moving forwards, as most of the teams have extricated themselves from amongst one another and will be relatively safe. I'm just taking a quick scan to make sure that there's no one currently close to conflict. I think we're on board with probably the teams that are closest together, PERMITTA and MUERTE, over on the north side of Power Grid, playing near Hacienda in San Martin.
San Martin at the moment. Power Grid, obviously being controlled by MUERTE and PERMITTA Esports. Again, for Power Grid, a little bit more of an interesting spot. A lot of loot in this area. It's quite open. You can get a bit of information going forward. I always think that heading down from San Martin, down towards Graveyard and La Bandita itself, it's always a little bit difficult because you just have to send down this very rocky face of cliff before actually heading over towards pretty open area as you head towards Graveyard. I think the lucky thing with this plane path, as you mentioned earlier, John, obviously teams towards that northwest side get looted early, but it also doesn't mean that you have a huge amount of teams dropping out in the beginning of the game over towards the southeast side. Because I think our games yesterday on Miramar, you would just have so many teams already clustered towards Los Leones, Puerto Paraíso, and Minas Generales, Graveyard, even teams from Torre Armada and Campo Militar coming down very early on as well. So I think that this time around, it might be a little bit easier for a team that likes to go central to actually get through some of those gaps in the map towards those positions that they actually want to play in the endgame.
So potentially a little bit looser of a formation right now, less of a guard on those sides. We'll have to see if those openings can be found, if they can dive straight on through them as the zone starts to close for stage one. Major Pride playing over towards Chumacera, potentially looking to shimmy down towards the south, but you've got No Mercy Warriors all the way further south as well. So potential trouble on the southern roads there for them if they opt to go that way. If they try and move around Los Leones, we saw a guard yesterday coming through on the east side of Los Leones on that high ground position coming on through. So potential difficulty there should anyone try and run across that. I'm trying to think who it was who was sat up there. I can't quite remember, but it was very efficacious.
It's a really strong spot to be in for a long, long time of the game. I mean, Dagestan down towards that southwest side, we're playing some high ground on Los Leones itself, you know, and then we've got the high ground down towards Puerto Paraíso as well, which is a little bit more difficult to play because it is quite open in that area, so you do sort of want to hang around the edges for as long as possible before the circle shifts over. Right now, some of these teams that we're looking at right now, we got Titans, average eliminations on Miramar. Kind of insane that they've got 14. I mean, that feels unreasonable, to be honest. But I think for Titans, they've done fairly well today so far. I think that if they continue on this kind of path, we could see them very high up in the rankings quite quickly, because they did lag behind a little bit yesterday. But for them, it was definitely a factor of teamwork where individually these players are very strong, but working as a team slightly harder for them. You can see that they've kind of changed their approach, though, to these games even just today, in the sense that a lot of their fights are slower. Yesterday, much quicker, much faster in terms of taking engagements, a bit more impulsive, but the fact that maybe the synergy's not there, they need to be a bit more careful in terms of their approach to these engagements, make sure everyone understands the calls before they make them. So yes, the fights are slower, but they feel much more deliberate at the end of the day, which is leading to more success, and they can work on the speed of things later on in the tournament. I think right now this is a very quick change that's come from day 1 to day 2, and it's sort of astounding how quickly it's come through.
If you're able to maintain a sort of a top 6 position on the tables as well, you're really not going to be that far behind when it comes to bonus points overall, moving into those finals as well. So as you say, you can take a little bit more time. You do not need to be top spot every week. As much as it's cool if you manage to get an 80 bonus points moving into the finals, the maximum possible, it's not necessary in any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Gladiators were able to do it, for instance, last season. They were able to win out the entire tournament. Definitely not the top when it came to those bonus points.
No, I mean, they did have a fair few, though.
They had a lot.
Yeah, I think you need to be still within distance, okay? So you need to be in range of towards that third, second, first spot in terms of bonus points, because they are massively influential on your end game final performance. Yeah, they don't mean that you're going to outright win. We have seen definitely in some other regions where you'll have teams that have practically no bonus points yet will win the tournament. But a lot of times that happens. Here's the caveat, is that the bonus points are really, really well spread between every single team. So you're sort of starting off, everyone is basically on 0, but their knocks is like 21, 23, 24, all the way down the leaderboard. That's the only time when it really does happen. But I think in EU, we certainly have some of these big contenders. As Max said, sorry, trademark, copyright, the big 3 at the top. These tend to be the guys that get the majority of the bonus points at the end of the tournament.
We will be looking out for their gains as it comes on through. Obviously, it is set into 3 phases. Will be ordered there on the points, so we'll be waiting to see at the end of 6 days of play which teams sit at the top of phase 2. That is a big shift out onto the east side, Blank. We are all the way over to Impala and cutting out a lot of land. A lot of eliminations are about to flood through, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally 50% of the circle that's gone. There's even chance of the mythical island finish that I've never seen, that I might be able to uncover today, which would be a miracle and a half, considering we only got 1 Miramar coming through. Nexus, who dropped down towards Impala, already taken a knock. You can see, like you said, the amount of teams that are just squeezing into this tight space at the moment, and that makes things very uncomfortable. MADBULLS, though, a little less afraid to take this push to move up. Great initial nade there coming through from Tulika. Will finish off Doran, and Redox just has to hightail it.
Running around the headland, sees the crate, will know that they're not looking for that res, that there is a reposition coming through. In the meantime, on the west side of Impala, Titan clash with KASIK. Unicorn cut away there right now as Havlik steps out for the flush. Robs is down, but they have got control for now. They can keep him alive for the time being. Trofka moving on in, trying to look for an opening against the Titan line, but will not be able to find one. Ingush looking to get those stims on board, try and get a little bit of power. Smoke down, they want Rob's back.
Icy moves out. There's the airburst coming through from Ingush. That is actually not a bad run out as well, because it sort of scares the player away from that position. Another smoke sent through. Havlik as well as Robs will be taken down by that nade from Ingush. And I think Icy had to be a little bit more on the ball there in terms of holding him. But that was his last nade. So I think Icy perhaps maybe can just move back in. I think the fact they're all crawling out, 1 DBS shot should do it in terms of taking them down. But that nade will keep them off. Into the cages, Titan go, and this really is quite the cage match unfolding.
That is not where this fight looked like it was going. Where's the fourth player from Titan? That's what I want to know. Where are they playing around? Oh boy, completely separate from this. Not playing with the rest of the roster here. And right now, they certainly need all the help they can get. Icy goes down, did manage to get that res, and Havlik can bring his teammate back. KASIK team still stuck on the inside. Trofka not resed just yet. As Rob's getting pulled back up yet again. Trofka still bleeding away, but has a lot of health bar to go. Icy can suppress. You can see Old Boy just in the back there, watching his teammates.
Yeah, I think he's trying to take the off angle onto the windows in the building. I am a little bit questionable about this play. See Gladiators sending through off in the distance, all in their convoy, straight towards the center of the map once again. Very much typical Gladiators. They do this quite well each time, but it looks like they might have made a very decent push. It might be the first time in a while that we see them make this central push and have all 4 players still alive. So I'll have to wait with bated breath for that to happen. Icy once again knocked. The amount of times these guys have been knocked, I would be surprised if it's just 50% of the health bar just going every single time.
That was a team nade coming through from Titan as well. You cannot afford to make these missteps, and Icy gets flushed. Really unfortunate. Titan looked like they had control of the fight, but it was taken away. I think the big turning point, Blank, was that double knock with the nade from Ingush through the doorframe. And they have not recovered since. Old Boy just nowhere to be seen, did not have an impact on this fight, and is now the last player to stand. Rob's bleeding out very quickly. Old Boy, if he wants to get him back, needs to move now, but he's not doing so.
Yeah, this is I want to say curious, but I don't really like this play coming through from Old Boy. I think if he was in this engagement much sooner, you know, a 4v3, as soon as they got that initial knock through, you know, life becomes so much easier at that point. You can start to trade off one another. You don't have to constantly go for these nade plays all the time. You can definitely go for a couple of shots, move back, and then head into the building afterwards and just overpower them. So for Old Boy just to sit over towards that northwest side, questionable at best, a misplay at worst.
I don't like it either, Blank, but it's what we're left with. Shockwave going to be left with more than that, though. 3 eliminations on the cards as VULGAR boys do fall on the northeast side. Shockwave and VIRTUS.PRO now both moving in from that north edge. This is the biggest percentage circle shrink that we see of any map, Blank. This phase 2 Miramar shrink, as well as it being about 50% water. The next shift is not kind either. Keeps a lot of water still in the mix. I don't think we're heading over to the Mythical Island finish, but we certainly have had a difficult set of proceedings for all of these teams.
Yeah, Gladiator's actually able to careen themselves into the backside of Impala. In the meantime, Shockwave is doing a pretty marvelous job at holding out on this northern side. They've defeated a lot of teams coming through that area, but at the moment, Shockwave is starting to suffer in terms of the blue. Stage 3 doesn't hurt too much, but it's certainly going to start to push you further towards the center of the circle. Kapahara will be finished off here, with Gladiators actually heading up to 1 elimination now so far, but having such a central spot in the circle, controlling a lot of space from a good high ground position, you know, they can leverage this game now.
Really, really nice setup. Nice position for Gladiators. East side rotation for No Mercy Warriors. They're trying to move under the sight lines of Major Pride. Not get taken down. You can see them just a little bit up the hill on that west edge. Relatively quiet on the south side compared to the rest of the circle, to be honest. So we'll see what they're able to do there. Gladiators, I think they took a knock, and I think that was a flush as well there, Blank. Potentially going and dropping down to 3, although
I think they
can't quite get a count.
Yeah, I think they did get him back up on his feet, luckily.
Oh, yeah.
Circle shifts up over towards MADBULLS and Gladiators again. Now, I do want to point out one thing very interesting, because Max was actually talking about on the desk in his illustration. It's really cool that it comes back into play, is that Gladiators wait for that moment where they hear the nades coming through between KASIK team as well as Titans, and that's when they make the movement. Again, like Max says, always the best time to make your move is when you hear fighting off in the distance. And I say that because I want to be very clear to anyone watching at home that these pushes from Gladiators, yes, they seem bold, yes, seem a little bit courageous at times, but there is timing behind them. They're not just sending it without any concern in the world. There is definitely thought that's going behind it at the same time. So it's really smart, and I think that these deliberate pushes now, again, something that we've been asking for a long time, where we know they can take those spots, and as a central team, when they do get that center spot, they perform so well. So it's nice to see them doing that now. MADBULLS currently playing on their 2-2, John. A bit more difficult, I would say.
Yeah, currently now, I mean, unless they can force other teams to fight off against each other with this 2-2 split, they are going to be vulnerable. From these teams out to the west in this circle, you'd imagine that they're going to look for a regroup to pick a point and go for it in the next couple of minutes, a minute or two, really. But losing Frozen up there is disastrous. That's exactly what we were worried about.
I think for MADBULLS, this is, again, it's the same problem that's coming up to bite them today. It's a massive worry about this eastern side. But I think when you get a circle like this, where basically TUNA as well as Fleek have an insane compound down towards the east side. Yes, it doesn't have a huge amount of cover from the hilltops, but you don't need to go for a lot of these engagements. You can kind of play the same playstyle that we saw KASIK on that last game, which is peaceful, quiet, passive, and then start to get a little bit more stuck in on the late game. I think when you're blessed with a circle like this, where you're not exactly pressured by a lot of teams because they're too busy fighting one another, it's absolutely okay to take one of those compounds and sit in it. It is boring, it's not fun, but you can just go for that play. And I think right now what MADBULLS are doing is trying to exert a bit more pressure, try and take shots at these teams so they don't get too close. So far they've been fairly successful, but I do think we're starting to get to that point in the game on stage 5 where this is not really as possible to go for anymore.
Agori cowering in the shack under the MADBULLS pressure that they have on the west side, but they've re-established the 2-2 split. They're going to go back to it, Blank. We'll see if they can make something happen, because it's not out of the question that it can, but as you've highlighted there, difficult, dangerous, risky. So we'll see. It's almost like the opposite of the Gladiators' newer playstyle, right? It's for them, it's planned, it's principled, but for the MADBULLS, they're just trying to take as much as they can whenever they can.
Yeah, and I think that there's some merit to it in a way, because I think if they don't regroup stage 5, then there's a problem with this play. But if they do regroup stage 5 when this new circle pops, then it's quite smart, it's quite intelligent, because if they can grab that high ground towards the western side, that is a really strong place to play. If we head over towards the east, they have that compound that TUNA and Fleek are playing. And because they've exerted so much pressure, they have cleared so much space around this spot, which is forcing a lot of other teams to fight against one another. So if they regroup now up to a full 4 squad on this stage 5, which they absolutely should, down towards TUNA and Fleek now, it is a great play. It's a great play. It was a risky one, but it has paid off, and it looks like that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, Frozen descends. I mean, the shift from the circle does help their regroup decision somewhat. They have a very clear choice to make. Zerich, the question is, how long is he going to stay out on that western point? Dark Project are moving into that position. They've got Agori and Becca from KONINA Power close by as well. MUERTE getting opened up on by No Mercy Warriors here, living up to the name, and Furia falls last for that position. MUERTE not out of it just yet. They still have got 2 players live and kicking. Further south, further north than No Mercy Warriors, but further south than the main center of players.
Astic moves up towards MUERTE. Just 2 players left remaining. Corker tries with the UMP to hold them back, but playing up this hill is really difficult. Nice nade comes through from Malloy, 2 down.
Oh dear.
Perhaps he can get his teammate back up, and with the players from No Mercy Warriors in the background here, there is time to go for this res.
And MADBULLS have heard all of this. You can see the 2 players, Fleek and TUNA, have moved out and into position to be able to just get oversight on all of this. Fleek has stopped the No Mercy Warriors from regrouping. Watch Me is going to go down. In the meantime, the Gladiators are holding off against PERMITTA. They've been in this position for a while. PERMITTA try and move around them, and they are being denied access right now by the Gladiators' baseline of fire. TIXI does get traded off, but knocked in a position where he can crawl back and get rezzed. A nade over the top nearly finds what it's looking for there, but it's just a little bit short. We'll have to find a little bit more than that, unfortunately. TIXI will get back to his feet. Gladiators could stay as 4 on the northwest side, but plenty of threats circling the water.
Yeah, I mean, for Gladiators at the moment, what they really need to do is just clear this space. If they can clear all the teams, remain as a full 4-man squad, this position is fairly defensible as well. They'll have a real shot at chicken dinner, actually, despite them being right on the edge on this northwest side. Similarly, though, there are other teams looking for that kind of position. You know, right now, I think actually it's only Gladiators that has the real shot, but they have to be very careful. There's a lot of teams that have lost members up on this top side. Dark Project, NEXUS, KASIK team, and PERMITTA Esports. But every single one of them certainly able to be taken down.
Speaking of getting taken down, Major Pride fall. As the Nameless are there, as is a representative from No Mercy Warriors. 13th place for them. KASIK team, they were able to keep control of this engagement against Titans. Looks like they are going to be able to do so again against one of the players from NEXUS to just keep their little slice of Impala alive for themselves for the time being, Blank.
I think you're right, John. I think that, you know, there's potential just to hold on to this spot for a little bit longer. There's so many teams with so little players. I mean, they've all just been crunched along the edge side. It's very, very difficult to make these sort of plays at this point in time. The Nameless just want to get rid of these final players from No Mercy Warriors and then hopefully just live it out from this south side. It does give them a bit of cover. Finally, Zerich will pick off one of the players from KONINA Power. They've been looking for that for a long, long time, John.
That'd be good news to be able to take down one of those two remaining players. The Nameless circling underneath, but that staircase is so treacherous to move up. A nade in the right place, a couple of shotgun shells, and you are toast. Look at the nades, the ordnance, the suppression being laid down towards Wobbly's position. It's a team nade. Hate most finds Beast, and that is really, really unfortunate. Bad communication there comes through. And they step out into the explosion. Wobbly might be able to take an opportunity here and push down. Find a pick. We'll be able to do so. Ooh. What a timing for him. MADBULLS prediction for 3 of us. In the meantime, you've gone for Gladiators. And finally, the chaos has ended. But that was hairy, to say the least, for the Nameless.
Yeah, very difficult. I mean, that could have gone very wrong. I mean, I think MADBULLS should win this game, right? But I do sort of want Gladiators to win just purely from the position they're in. I mean, there's so many players around them that are scattered, and they can take high ground position looking down towards the MADBULLS. So there's still very much potential for Gladiators to win this game. And I think that if they can, it will really show both their strength in terms of their edge playstyle and the center, because this time around, because they sent towards the circle so early on, John, it does give them that chance to actually play edge as opposed to play blue, which is something that I think they mistook playing edge for before.
Yeah, it's easy to mix the two up, you know, Blank. You've got to make sure that you are on the ball with it. Unicorn to Love dropping off the cliff underneath. Shockwave from that northeast side. That descent from the north has been so fraught over these last couple of circles, Blank. I mean, it's exacerbated by the fact that we've still got water in stage 6 on Miramar, which is insane to have it even this late. I mean, we were thinking about how crazy it was in stage 2. Now we're in stage 6 and there's still water. The Gladiators fending off against Dark Project, leaving only KASIK left. And he's not long for this one, I'm sure. Tixi has been knocked again on the Gladiator side, but he has a forwards friend, and Meku will pull him back to his feet.
Yeah, I think you know what? Shockwave has done a really good job this game. Playing from the north side, I mean, he's very surprised that they made it into this game this late. And I think what they've done is just massively control over towards that north crossing. Frozen takes some good shots over towards Gladiators. It's a very rough spot they're having to play in from now on. Matic is basically holding out the remainder of the players, the remainder of the teams over towards this northwest side. And Frozen's having none of it.
MADBULLS are heads up on this. They know Matic's on this hillside now. You can see Fleek looking to peek it, Frozen as well. So re-attention being drawn as the smokes bloomed on the lower position. And there's KASIK able to take the off angle away from the Gladiators. Might take down KASIK himself as Ingush just about hops into cover. The Gladiators further down the hill are going to be there to receive that one, but Redox, I think, was able to pick it up. No, it's Tixi slaying in on from the northeast side of them. The main position for the Gladiators, but they've lost Matic, and that is a crucial off angle that they needed.
I mean, I think he did the majority of his job right. You know, he made sure that KASIK couldn't stand up for as long as he did, which, although does leave him going down to actually, that project, it does mean that at least KASIK is now in a position where he really, well, realistically can't push out at all.
TixI steps, gets a little bit of a spray, but doesn't get the knock. Losing Matic, leaves him on 3 players, and they are all known positions for MADBULLS. The circle shifting out further east. Both of them are going to have to break. SHOCKWAVE might be in with a shot.
The issue for MADBULLS right now is just the utility. It's really lacking, at least for Zerich here. MUERTE go head-to-head versus the Nameless. These 2 players from MUERTE have been doing really good as a duo. The fact they're up to 6 eliminations now at this stage of the game, 6 teams remaining, very, very impressive stuff. Gladiators, their position, I think that it's going to be hard to leave. It's going to be very hard to leave. Let's put it that way.
They have sort of locked themselves into the cage here. Safe for now, but KASUNE actually makes a break, but towards SHOCKWAVE, it's going to be a tricky position. Might be able to just about find a little bit of cover. Can the rest of his team move in? Because KASUNE's already been taken down by Aza from SHOCKWAVE. Meku is left last standing as TixI takes a tumble as well. Redox on the cliffside will go down, sure, but with only 1 player left standing, I think the Gladiators run might be drawn short, but they've already got 6 eliminations on the cards. If Meku can just survive a little bit longer, okay, he can't. They are still going to have a fairly decent game. The bad news is the MADBULLS, who were ahead of them before, will maintain that lead now. 61 points, sure, but the Gladiators have their placement points already. And the MADBULLS are looking for way more than that. So we'll see what they're able to achieve here.
2 players for MUERTE, but 2 very deadly players for MUERTE, let's put it that way. 1 player for KONINA Power left remaining in the midst of MADBULLS, crawling his way down. Eventually he's going to have to step up, but I wonder if he's even going to go for it. He knows he can't step up just yet, and he runs in and will immediately be taken down by TUNA. Really good on the swivel there. In the meantime, SHOCKWAVE will move up. Terminus gets a little bit further towards the circle itself. Now, MADBULLS will have to push off this hillside. That's the difficulty for them, but at the moment, they still control a lot of this compound. Even with this next circle, life still looks pretty good for the MADBULLS. What doesn't look good for them right now is that util. Look at that. Only 1 first aid kit for Felique. And really not much of a resupply coming through from that single player from KONINA Power.
I mean, they had that stationary position for so long, Blank, and that is why they're running dry. On the flip side, you've got SHOCKWAVE, who have absolutely been in probably as many, if not more, engagements.
TULIKA?
Okay, TULIKA goes down to the blue zone. But they have had those resupplies because they've been able to move through. You can see 4 nades in the pocket there, 4 nades, 2 Molotovs. Oh, that's MUERTE on the south side, sorry. But the nade will be launched over for Corker towards Terminus. I think the MADBULLS have got TULIKA back to his feet. That was a bit odd, but will be able to stay up as 4. Force this fight to linearize, force MUERTE's duo to take on SHOCKWAVE. But they're going to sweep in behind MUERTE. Okay, MADBULLS roll down the hill.
Yeah, this is a smart play. I think I know why TULIKA went down. Frozen will take down at least one of the players from MUERTE. That's Malloy out. But MUERTE has done a fantastic job to make it this far into the game. Corker most likely next to fall. I think TULIKA went out into the blue to pick up the loot coming through from KONINA Power. It's the only reason I can imagine he would go for that. I think they know that they need the nades. They need the smokes available to them, especially in this endgame finish versus a team that has a lot. But that is a really cool play coming through from SHOCKWAVE. Immediately taking the high ground, understanding that there's only 2 teams left. This team's already rocked downwards, so very nice little play coming through from SHOCKWAVE to fully take advantage of the game and not allow MADBULLS to lock them into a disadvantage fight.
You've gone, well, most of us have gone for the MADBULLS on the predictions, Blank, but SHOCKWAVE, I think, have demonstrated incredible strength, fighting through on that north side through a very difficult set of engagements. They have certainly proved themselves this, Miramar. Zerich, though, still on the lookout, still on the hunt. 7 eliminations for the MADBULLS so far, and if Terminus goes down here, they will be severely limited. Last stage is in. And SHOCKWAVE have the high ground on a little bit of a swivel, but TULA able to find the opening knock over onto Terminus. A lot of damage found, and this high ground outpost for them is doing so much work. It is their lifeline in this engagement flank, and Ace is next to fall as Fleeke starts to move up. There's a challenge, but there's 3 barrels pointed your way, and now the last player's position is also known. You just can't get away from this. The MADBULLS, they're able to claim this one back. What it was rightfully theirs to begin with. SHOCKWAVE looked like they could have taken it back, but the MADBULLS are able to deliver.
A really good game from MADBULLS, honestly. I think that end game there was very, very interesting. I think that the way that it really just does come down to gun skill. Like, you saw the shots coming through from MADBULLS. They understood with the limited amount of utility they had. It was a good thing TULA actually went out into the blue to get those smokes because they were massively required for their push there. But they just had to hit their shots because they didn't have first aid kits. I think one or two of the players had one, but they understood that that fight had to end immediately. There could be no returning or restabilizing, so they kept pressuring them, and that ended up with them getting the win. So a really, really good game.
I like SHOCKWAVE's push up the hill, but in the end, the MADBULLS were able to bring that one back under control. Excellent stuff, maintaining their position at the top of the tables for the MADBULLS.
Hi there guys, you're watching PMPL Western Europe Fall Split. I'm here with Octavian from Team Nexus. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man.
So, your team has been with us since the first season of PMPL Western Europe. How have the past seasons gone? Because you've had quite a few roster changes recently.
To be honest, we just changed some players and we try some new things, and we'll see what about this next PMPL.
I mean, it looks like it's been going fairly decently so far. And you know what? If it works, it works. How does your family feel about you competing at such a high level in PUBG Mobile? How do they support you?
To be honest, just support me by messaging me. Like, I'm happy that you made it so far and stuff like that. And all my fans as well. That's nice to see those messages. Makes me feel good.
That's really awesome. It's nice that your family supports you playing in PUBG Mobile. Nexus almost took first place in the European Championship, and you've gone on to play your very first LAN and in the PMRC too. What lessons have you learned by playing with some of the best teams in the world?
To be honest, like, nothing new, but like that was a nice experience, to be honest. And yeah, we'll see about next PMPL. So yeah, let's go.
Another day, another dollar, another chicken dinner for MADBULLS. I mean, we're not even surprised at this point, although the way that ended, I think it was very much between SHOCKWAVE and MADBULLS, and we're like, ooh, 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 and then, yeah, MADBULLS did.
And then MADBULLS did some really good moves. We're going to be able to break down a bunch of those because the execution on MADBULLS' side was so good. And MADBULLS are pulling what I love to call the Regnum Caria special, which is 2-2 split, middle of the circle, wait until as long as you can in the game to regroup and get in the better position you possibly can at that time when you regroup. They went over to the compound this time around, and all the teams that were trying to get out of Impala just got absolutely obliterated because of how the circle was working out and some of the terrain. I'll talk about it in another telestration segment. Yes, you're very lucky. A lot of telestration today. But SHOCKWAVE, though, what was going on, Ginny? They were like on 5 limbs at phase 3, I believe it is. Yeah. And then they started wrecking the rest of the lobbies, such as Unicorns of Love, being so much more controlling. I'm loving this aggressive roster of SHOCKWAVE, as in particular is a really standout French player to me. So more, please. I'm loving it. Thank you.
Yeah, consistency as well, though, coming out from Gladiators and Nexus. They both get a couple of points on the board, whether it's limbs or placement points. But I want to go back to that SHOCKWAVE point specifically because last time on Spring as well, they have had these games where they just have pop-off moments. They've had some games where they're double-digit elims, double-digit placement points, and then it falls off a little. So I hope to see this something that continues throughout the season rather than just being the odd game here and there. Because honestly, as you said, the aggression coming out from Shockwave, the elims secured on the board by Azar and Terminus, they were really, really great.
Yeah, it's so impressive how this team is working out. Of course, these are two new players. Wagner Zada and also GG are two players that we have not really seen play before. So they're the big question mark when it comes to this roster. But Azza and Terminus, like, they've been proven to be strong players in the European region for so long. Yeah. And when you think of French players, right, I think it's fair to say you think of Navallo, you think of Victor, you think of Robs, more specifically in spring of 2023. But Azza and Terminus are not really players that instantly come to mind. But I'm telling you, these guys are so talented. I just feel like they've been going from roster to roster from time to time and struggling to find their spot. But
yes,
I mean, when you start shredding the lobby the way they did here, 10 eliminations on board, a second place, love to see it. But MADBULLS were there, Ginny, and that was just a little bit too big of a hurdle to overcome.
Yeah, it happens though, but it also means that the fact that they were able to get that far into the lobby, they're the last two teams remaining. They are going head to head with MADBULLS. That is something that from Shockwave we haven't really seen much of before. So it's a really good sign of what they're able to do, and what they're capable of. And also, it's a really good experience. They've now gone head to head against MADBULLS. They're now aware what they shouldn't be doing next time, what went wrong for them this time around. They can implement that change, and it's so early on in the season. They have weeks left to be able to come through with these changes, weeks left to come through with these adaptations, which then only further increases their chances and their possibilities of climbing up those ranks.
Exactly. We saw it right for Nexus, and I might be a bit lucky. I said I wanted to see Nexus get himself a win. They did it. I want to see Shockwave get himself a win. I feel like that would be one of the missing points I am missing from Shockwave. If they get themselves a win.
The bingo card.
Exactly. I put that on my bingo card and I'd hope it becomes reality. Hopefully I get the bingo. But they have what it takes, I'm telling you. Their rotation up north on the ridge side was really good. They were reading that circle really well. They understood that teams leaving Impala were going to be at their weakest, so it's just the best to sweep the coastal line at that point. The clear Unicorns of Love gave so much more control. MADBULLS, as I already stated, did a really good play towards the end of that game, but this is hopefully going to give them that confidence boost we need. But so much damage from MADBULLS, and I think John and Blank mentioned it a bit during that game. MADBULLS did struggle a bit towards the very end because they were out of utility. They were out more specifically of meds. They couldn't heal up from any kind of damage they were taking anymore because they were locked in those positions for so long that they could not go out, get to the crates of their fallen enemies and get that loot. So that is unfortunately one of the weaker aspects of this playstyle, but they were able to make up for it by just absolutely taking amazing fights every step of the way. So MADBULLS, even where they were supposed to struggle, they were able to overcome it.
Yeah, and that's what's really important. I mean, the damage, though, when we're comparing this to what we've seen yesterday, maybe not as impressive, maybe not as jaw-dropping, but still, the fact that MADBULLS is able to stay in those 2,000 plus damage for their maps is very, very important and very crucial, because it's, again, another highlight of their consistency and of the danger that they are to the rest of the lobby. But Max, you said we were going to get another telestration, so please do give us the honors.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I want to highlight a point that Blank made in this game and that I was a big fan of this point is Gladiator actually in this position. You're going to be able to highlight over to the northeastern edge of Impala. And the reason why their position in this circle is so good is if you're looking at this terrain, Impala is very peculiar in terms of compounds compared to a lot of other maps because you have this big, a peanut mountain, we're going to call it. It looks like a peanut. So it's Peanut Mountain. Officially, that's the name we're going to call it right here. But this entire terrain makes these transitions away from Impala so rough. The only ways to get into this circle is to leave by the southern side, which is what is seen happen from the Nameless at that point, and also by leaving up in the northern edge. What happens in a position like this, of course, it means that you're going to have a funnel situation where everyone is going to be forced into Gladiator's position. And by being where they are, all of the teams such as KASIK team, NEXUS, VIRTUS.PRO, Dark Project are going to have to pretty much fully send it towards Gladiators, and Gladiators had such a good position at that time, they could just obliterate a lot of these other teams. So teams like NEXUS, Dark Project were just going to have a tough time making that transition. And by doing so, once you eliminated a lot of those teams, you can make such an easy transition in this position, which is where they ended up going later on, because you know the West is fully cleared out. you're not going to have that backstab threat anymore, so you're only going to be able to focus on teams such as SHOCKWAVE, Unicorns of Love, MADBULLS that are in a central or eastern location at the time. So yeah, Gladiators, sure, don't quite get themselves the win, but it was a really good setup to at least get good eliminations and have a safety net for the late game.
Yeah, and the safety net played off its dividends, if not more. So they do manage to get themselves really, really nice amounts of points. And as much as we're saying Gladiators have been really consistent, they haven't really been getting as many chicken dinners as when we're looking at MADBULLS. So I'm really looking forward to see how that's going to be impacting everything. But thank you so much, Monster, for making it possible to get through today. We only have 2 maps left. This is going so fast. Like, I cannot even wrap my head around it. We're going to be heading over to John and Blank. And John thought that looked more like a baked bean, so let's hear his opinion.
It's true. It's only going to get faster as well. We are going to be baking plenty of beans here, Blank, because there is a lot more action in Sanhok, one of the fastest maps that we play here in the PMPL.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get them baked up real quick, nice and boiling over towards this side of Sanhok, because it is going to be quite the difficult match. But at the beginning, it's just going to be a light simmer. Just a light simmer towards the beginning side, where teams all get situated, the positions that they want to play. But again, 2 Sanhoks on the day, couldn't be more pleased with it. Obviously, some of these teams were slightly struggling towards that start of the day. Sanhok, just because the terrain wasn't exactly ideal for a lot of them. And with Titan just getting that circle over towards the northeast side, down towards Painan, pretty much where they started their game. Very easy transition for them to finish this one out. But again, it did require them to be very vigilant in terms of their actual positions they were taking, protecting spots and areas around the map where teams could have backstabbed them. So very, very well done to them. And maybe we can see something similar here today.
I mean, it has been non-stop excitement and interesting play, I think, as well. It's safe to say for the tournament so far, Titan not going to have a hot drop in Painan this time around. The Gladiators will be probably less worried as well, because they don't have Major Pride moving down from boot camp. They don't have Unicorns of Love on that northwest island either. The Unicorns of Love have repositioned down to Sami this time around. The first Sanhok that we saw yesterday, that position for Unicorns of Love was split around that trifecta area, and obviously earlier today we saw that Major Pride reposition from boot camp to take control of that area. No one's there just yet. TUNA might be looking for that position. The first circle yet to tell us where we're going to go, though.
Yeah, I think with Gladiators, yes, there's a lot of reasons why this becomes a bit easier for them, but with SHOCKWAVE towards that northeast side and MADBULLS down towards the southwest, leaving does become a little bit more difficult. So typically right now, what I'd like to see from Gladiators is just to head over towards Trifecta. Look at some of the teams around the map as well. KONINA Power, typically a very good team that plays on Sanhok, always able to take these cheeky little outposts on the outside of the circle itself and play a good edge play style. Dark Project haven't really had too much of a standout so far, John. I would like to see a bit more from them. 35 points at the moment in 11th place, so not too far behind. But again, SHOCKWAVE after that last match up to 44. Surprising a lot of us at the moment. Aza, the Laser, still doing good stuff. And Terminus, again, he has always been a very strong player in PUBG Mobile and certainly brought some special to the team.
Really interesting to see how this is all developing. How each of these players develops throughout these seasons as well. I mean, there's stories behind almost all of them at this stage. I was looking at those overall standings, Blank. You can see MADBULLS at the top there, 78 points to 65. The biggest thing about that is that they are still 1 match played behind the Gladiators, who are in 2nd place. That point gap of 13 points is whilst MADBULLS still have a game in hand. So this is Gladiators' last game of today. They need to put up big points if they want to keep par with the MADBULLS roster. But after the chicken dinner they've just had, they're looking pretty fine.
Yeah, Sanhok a little bit more of a difficult match for this team. I think that typically with Gladiators more going for the central play style a lot of times. Sanhok is where they really slow things down. It's a map they've always been a bit worried about playing. And especially in PMPL EU, when you play Camp Alpha, you know, it's always that south side and that north side that's going to be an issue. And with SHOCKWAVE actually playing some really good, strong PUBG Mobile at the moment and very good at holding out teams. And similarly with MADBULLS on a bit of a streak, it's difficult to fight against any of these guys without making that early rotate over towards Trifecta. Even then, you have to barrel your way through Titans, No Mercy Warriors, as well as TUNA Esports. So it's a difficult rotate from Camp Alpha for Gladiators. So I don't think I don't think today is really a good example of how many points they could put up in the long run. But I do think it's still a map that they need to work on, if anything.
Certainly something isn't quite clicking for them. A couple of times when we've seen them on Sanhok, it feels like they get a good position sometimes at the start and then just kind of fall flat. And they haven't moved down to this trifecta position either. Not just yet. They're still looting, and there is still time. But Tixi has moved up towards the rest of them, so they do not have that strong info anymore on the area. You can see now he's starting to move back down after gathering some of the loot, and will be that outpost over towards that trifecta crossing. And he'll be happy to maintain that position. Hopefully he'll have enough loot to be getting on with. No Mercy Warriors have found Beck, and there is a little bit of a revenge party moving on in, but unfortunately, Wait will not be amongst them. It's Rude and Elementrix, 3 players from No Mercy Warriors, as well as that 4th on the off angle. Looking to control it, Rude goes down, and it's just Elementrix through the window, though. He's found 1, 2, and 3. What a way to pick it back up. Looks for the reload, will be able to find it. Watch Me Loud, last standing for No Mercy Warriors, breaks out wide, hops into the building as well. Up into the wall with the DBS, has control of the window and the door frame. Elementrix skirts underneath both of them, under the windowsill, and wants those flushes. Putting a nade through on the door here. Is Watch Me stuck there? I think he can get out, just about hops away. And is able to get on the outside now. Not going to have time for the res. Peeks the door frame. Lower and lower the ammo count goes. 17 rounds left in that clip for Elementrix. Peeks the side. Not many more, but it's going to do the trick. VIRTUS.PRO stay alive, and Mercy Warriors pulled apart in a 1 versus 4.
Elementrix, man, this guy has really stood out from last season as a returning member to PUBG Mobile. Very, very fantastic plays. Can always bring out those clutch moments. That's what he's always been known for as well. With that UMP solo ammo, you got to be very quick on the ball there. Unicorn to Love down to just 1 player, I believe it is now. Nade comes through from Temp, looks to finish it off over towards Rolkis as he runs through. He'll need to heal, but Rolkis will go down finally to a nice little nade around the side, and that's PERMITTA Esports up to 4 eliminations. Once again, it feels like they're always starting off their Sanhoks very strong here, John.
A good start, you're right. See if they can make it to late game, because they are only 3 players now. Will be a little bit trickier. TUNA coming up against Titan, but 2 players from Titan are down, and Icy not in a position to regroup on them here. Havlik and Robs down on the front here, and oh boy, will he be in this fight? Because right now he's in that compound down to that northwest side of the engagement. Not really good for backup, but will start to push on into these hills, into the trees. You can see him repositioning now as Icy gets the heal off and launches a nade perfectly placed onto Purple, and will be able to save the team. Could have been disaster, but Titan stay up.
There we go. Old Boy finds his angle on the side. Will find Obito. I mean, I think Old Boy kind of expects a lot from his team. I'll put it that way. I mean, he's happy to hold these off angles, but again, it's one of those things where that off angle is technically quite good over towards TUNA Esports. It just relies on the rest of your team taking that 3v2 and winning it out. Alpha over towards KONINA Power, 2 players already down. Mandarin looking for a 3rd here with the nade, goes around the side, beautiful burst in the air, and that should be KONINA Power down to just 1 player now, with Becca off in the distance.
We're being treated to plenty of Stage 1 engages, Black. We have 13 teams alive, 45 players, and we are still yet to see the second circle. So lots of action being packed into the early part of Sanhok. We said it was going to be fast. We didn't know it was going to be this fast. Zadira close to Tenchik from Alpha. And the player at the backstop for Dagestan has already been taken down. This is on the east side of Quarry, and it's a continuation of the engagement that we just saw with KONINA Power. A lovely nade over the top, and Zadira goes down. Keep tries to run it on through, but it just won't find the connection there on the bumper, leaving 1 player alive, and Alpha are doing wonders so far on this map. 5 eliminations found, all 4 of them alive. Playing on the southeast, it seems like they've got themselves a nice spot.
Yeah, some serious work being done by Alpha, and this is coming off the back of an early regroup. I think on Sanhok, again, this is just adjustment that has to be made from map to map. They play like quite a wide split here on Sanhok in the beginning. Obviously, they're noticing that teams are reading into that, so they quickly regroup onto one another over towards the northeast side and are able to instantly take down two teams very efficiently. So up to 6 eliminations now with the final members over from Keep as well as KONINA powered down. So a little bit brutal from Alpha, considering they just leave one player alive to tell the story each time. Quite the villain story being prepared here for Alpha team.
Trying to make themselves known, they certainly had an impact yesterday. Continue that now. Gladiators managed to make the crossing unscathed from that northwestern island, so good news for them. They're rolling actually to the west side of boot camp and going to swing over that north edge, try and get into one of the 2 compounds on those junctions out on the northeast side, the east side of boot camp here. You can see they're going a little bit wider around it, getting some of that scouting done, and Matic crashes straight on in. Tries to get those strafe shots baited out. With Titan a little bit further south, they're not going to be able to stop this move. They might be able to get a pick off.
Yeah, this is actually an alteration to Gladiator's typical rotation, which is to the south side of boot camp, and I think they've changed this over towards head to the coastal side, move to the north side of boot camp, play towards those warehouses. That gives you cover from any team that might still be in boot camp, and head towards one of these compounds. Much more confident, and it works out way, way better as well. I do think that always for Gladiators, I mean, the way they play Sanhok is so different from the way they play Erangel and Miramar in terms of taking those central spots. And I think it's purely because they do play Camp Alpha. It's sort of like playing Sosnovka over towards Erangel. But I think that with this different playstyle, it allows them to make these movements much more confidently over towards one of these compounds, which is going to benefit them a lot in the long run here, John. I think that the way that I see it, it's always been difficult for them playing in Camp Alpha, though, is because MADBULLS waits around a long time, and SHOCKWAVE is a good holdout team, so it's difficult to do either of these things.
They've gone for a little bit of a 2-2 split, not only taking control of the compound, but also the hills to their south, which is going to be good towards Titan. Potentially leaves them a little bit open to SHOCKWAVE on that northwest side, who are most likely going to look for it. A lovely shot there from Narvalo. Quite long range, but we'll be able to land it. Over towards Nexus, and more damage being found. Victor on the floor as well, just taking those shots, suppressing Nexus as much as they can. The northeast side hard against the blue there. As SBG still control Paradise Resort, likely they'll have to leave. We'll see where they want to try and set foot. Centers onto the Gladiators 2-2 split.
Again, playing very similar to how we saw MADBULLS on that previous Miramar. You play the 2-2 split. You give yourself a little bit of an angle on where in the circle you can play going forward. Now they've got 2 positions they can play. They opt to send back up towards the compound that is still in the circle itself. This gives them ample time to hold out teams up towards that north side coming out from Paris Resort, as well as teams coming down from Tapmock side. So I think this is quite the smart move. They can also get some scouting done because the ridge sides in this area are fairly valuable to players like Tixi as well as Matic, but he will pick up his teammate, hence sent straight back towards that compound side. Next, I think are going to really struggle to get in because SBG been able to control Paradise Resort for so long, John. They've just got all these high ground positions. So taking those shots over towards Nexus and being able to dip in and out of cover with basically high ground advantage, it's very difficult to deal with. You just have to send.
Nexus trying to draw Keep short on his rotation, but Dagestan, the Lone Ranger, won't go down that easy. Might, if he goes too close to Dark Project, though, is diverted from the top of the hill. I don't know if he caught sight of someone there or if it's just good game sense that he's staying low in these valleys to be able to get through without getting shot at as easily. Actually managed to make it all the way to a building, so gonna have some cover. Struggling to get through the window, though. Moves the vehicle instead.
Yeah, car's in the way there. Big man, you should probably get in the boot. Might be safer. Dark Project over towards Barnside. I want to see a bit more out of them this game. They currently have the high ground just looking over the valley that cuts through Barn itself. Alpha team did move up as well. Didn't have to move too far, but it's PERMITTA Esports. They're trying to get into the circle. Quite dangerous rotation, I would say. Past some compounds that are more than likely already occupied, and Snacks is driving a vehicle that is so close to exploding.
It's really on the line there. He's pretty close to exploding as well. Look at that health bar. Not good news for them. a difficult set ahead of them. Alpha further in, and that's what turned him around. Not too many more direct threats, but NEXUS might be swinging in for a visit. And I don't think they're going to be the best guests in the world. Octavian, Redox, not playing on those vehicles. Octavian does have a bike there, but it looks like they are a little bit low on those vehicles. Dark Project potentially losing Forced on an off angle here, but they have got that straight line around Barn. The Valley will keep NEXUS at bay for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, Redox there doesn't wait for the team shot. I think he was worried that the player was going to move out of cover. And I think that if he can get that knock, it opens up an ability to get into this engagement. He has delayed them slightly by forcing the heal, so it means the team can get up slightly quicker to this engagement. With the blue ticking away a lot of damage, they are at a massive disadvantage in this engagement.
Forced around the side of the rock. 3 players close, 1 a little bit further away. And he takes a lot of damage very early on. You see that off angle is going to be really important now for Forced. Gapahala will not be able to maintain it though, going a little bit too low for his liking in the blue, and Forced does finally fall. A little bit fumbly from NEXUS. They probably should have been able to take care of that one faster, but they're worried about the players up the hill. Can they get these knocks? You see the reposition down out to the left-hand side there for Dark Project. Potentially looking for an off angle. Gapahala already taken down. And that is going to force Octavian to reposition. Can NEXUS keep this one going?
Yeah, so 1 for 1 right now. Redox moves up with the UMP, but there's a DBS from KASIK. Good spray around the side, pre-firing him. It's a little bit of tickle of damage, but now he's in that range of HP where the DBS will just instantly flush him out. Terminus from Shockwave gets taken down by SBG, who are continuing to hold on the top side of Paris Resort, but they will have to move through the VULGAR boys, who are in an extremely strong spot at the moment, John, to actually hold out any team coming out from Paris Resort.
They'll need to move further south, though, out of the circle. In the meantime, Octavian steps out into the blue and gets the job done. Dark Project, they're going to cut their losses. Forced is low. The remaining 2 already leading the charge away from this engagement. NEXUS will have to mount up as well. The compound that sits on the junction right now is not occupied. The question for me is which team is going to send for this, because NEXUS are in a good spot to do so. VULGAR and Gladiators could potentially also make that move.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty with that compound, though, is you know there's a full 4-man squad hiding over on the other side of the crossing. And the reason that they don't take that position, that compound there, is the sightlines out of that compound absolutely horrible. Alpha has a massive advantage over anyone that tries to take that position, which is why you're not seeing anyone go for it yet. It's sort of that last-minute resort.
It's a difficult choice that they're going to have to make, though, because even if it is horrible sometimes, it's the only thing you have available to you. NEXUS in a pretty horrible spot themselves. PERMITTA, we talked early about how they started this game well, how their Sanhok play is really quite strong over the stretch of this tournament so far. We liked what we've seen. Can they take NEXUS down here and move forwards and take down Alpha as well? That's what they'll have to do, but it looks like they might just be falling short against NEXUS.
I mean, NEXUS have done a really good job to actually push through into this circle. It's not been easy whatsoever. VULGAR boys going down, though, was a big surprise for me. That's the type of position that you can really hold quite nicely. Snowix now with the DBS up front with a nade as well. He has a lot to do, but Shockwave falling so quickly here.
GG, not GG, the last player to stand now for Shockwave in a crazy turn of events. Narvalo launches the nade up high, forces the reposition. He knows he's on the rock, will have the shot, will have the drop on it as well. The first shot lands, not quite in range, and will be able to get that last shot. What a performance from Snowix, and Narvalo able to close it down in the end. SBG stay alive on the north side, and those threats are dissuaded as well, because there is no full 4 team on that north edge anymore.
Snowix is just like a sleet storm a lot of times. I mean, his little breakout over towards PMLC, EU versus Africa was so amazing to watch because you've got Victor, you've got Narval on the team, 2 legends in their own right. However, Snowix really blew them out of the water over in PMRC, EU versus Africa. A great addition to Super Big Gorillas to replace Robs, who did leave them. Havlik now looking over towards Meku, last player alive for Titans themselves. MADBULLS similarly also in a good spot. Great headshot, though, over towards Meku.
instantly knocking him. As soon as he peeks, he knew that that rock was occupied. Will not last long here, and that might give Meku a chance to crawl back in, but we're so late in the game, it might mean that the Gladiators are playing on with just 3 here, which is really unfortunate for their position. Meku staying a little bit too long, getting a little bit too greedy against Havlik.
I mean, clearing him out would have been ideal because otherwise they'd have the side swipe over towards their way. And we've seen what Havlik can do just solo on his own, which is always difficult. Here's that push from VULGAR boys. Again, it is Super Big Warriors just taking some, Super Big Gorillas, sorry, taking some really dangerous fights. But I think they realized that they had to take these engagements if they wanted to get further into the circle. They had to go from a very passive playstyle over in Paris Resort to instantly switching things up. Zerich gets caught on the off angle. He's been doing this quite frequently recently, trying to take these really long off angles, but it's not working out too well, especially when you're lagging behind your team in a very open area of the map.
Fortunately for MADBULLS, the rest of their performance has been so far unbeatable across the first leg of this tournament. NEXUS, they rolled down the hill and into this compound on the junction that we talked about earlier, the sightlines outside of which can be troublesome, but NEXUS have made it their home. Snowix, though, a fearsome lurker in the shadows, trying to get a little bit of an opening, potentially for Narvalo to come back in, but he's going to maintain that off angle for now. Alpha leaving their compound and moving up this hill to their west, currently hiding them from Gladiators and a little bit more from MADBULLS as well.
Another nade sent through. Mandarin might have stepped a little bit too far forward there. We'll have to hit the first aid kit. Nice nades over towards Keep, but won't flush him out. Redox, on the other hand, will have eyes on. Now, Alpha has to move further up towards this north side, and NEXUS have really been through the ringer this game. To 8 eliminations, really, they have no right having 4 players alive at this point in the game, but here comes Snowix over towards Octavian and Kapahala. Super Big Gorillas, more like Super Big Yeti when this guy hits the stage.
He is absolutely raining down hell on them. Narvalo moves in for some nades as well. Doran, you can see his armor's almost completely busted there. Nade in through the window, doesn't quite reach it, steps out. Narvalo doesn't know the Doran's behind here, but fortunately for SBG, they've still got Snowix. He's looking to continue this campaign, but unfortunately, the reses have come through. It's now a 1 versus 4. Can he pull the miracle off? The MADBULLS have sent into the middle of the circle in the meantime. Tulika has stepped forwards. The Gladiators have a shack on the western side, and Alpha have managed to march their way around and into open ground. It will go away from this compound, and NEXUS are going to have to leave.
Nice shots coming through from Tulika over towards Mandarin. Will actually take him down. Unlikely that the teammates from Alpha will be able to get him back up again. Snowix just sends dead central, and in come Gladiators as well. So it's Tulika, Snowix, the 2 solos, heading it off versus Gladiators.
Alpha have an angle onto Tulika as the Sheeper. Looking to continue that spray down, but Tulika repositions. Does he have cover from everyone? No, he does not. 10 Chickers there, but to be able to pick it up. But in the meantime, the Gladiators, they've spotted MADBULLS and they've spotted Alpha as well. The Gladiators moving in from the western side to try and take control over this hilltop. NEXUS looking for that mad dash, and in the chaos, they might be able to get across. Looking to push further south, though. They'll have to go a little bit more if they want to take this one home.
They find themselves a compound that's in the circle. This is really good for them. Snowix still alive over towards a little bit of hard cover. The fact that Alpha is able to send down towards Mandarin, picking back up again, is a really, really big boom for them. Circle sends directly up towards that northern side. NEXUS is laughing at the moment.
MADBULLS blasted out. And NEXUS, they're trying to leave, but what can they do? They are forwards, sure, a little bit, but Octavian needs to find an answer there. I think it was a low shot, and we'll be able to find a knock onto Gladiators. No, not even that. Actually, hang on a minute. No, they did. Matic has gone down there, and an opening for Alpha, potentially. Look at the valley that exists between them. Mandarin goes down, and Doran's still here. NEXUS have moved in, somehow getting across some open ground. Tixie falls, and 2 players after the res for Gladiator stand, but Kitsune's last to fall, and it might just be too much to bear. NEXUS have made their way into the middle somehow.
1 player left for Alpha, just a Sheeper. Last circle, it's zone 9. This will continue to push absolutely everybody in. And that's Alpha just going out NEXUS. It's Kapahala to take him down. Gladiators, though, looking to finish the fight here. Can NEXUS go all the way? A nade over the top, but not quite far enough.
Oh, no. A bad bounce on that nade for Kapahala. Suppresses his own position, in fact, with the Molotovs. Stops the close pushes, though. And they know the Gladiators have their backs to the zone. Tags himself with a fire. Is he going to take too much damage here? I don't know. Tixi breaking out wide door in for the challenge. Not good. The MG3 now. Last player to stand in their way. Kapahala for Nexus. Needs to find Matic, and he needs to find him now. The UMP is good in this close range and finds Kitsune. A sliver of HP against Matic. The burn could be good. Steps out wide and the heal is there. Will look for the shots over the top of the rock. And Matic looks to close it down for Gladiators. Can he land it? He does. And they roll over those hillsides. Nexus fought valiantly through time and time again. They pushed south, south, south again, but the last push was just too much, and the Gladiators take it back.
Insane game from Gladiators. Really had no right winning that one. They were in a very tough position on the map, but they fought absolutely everybody. They were getting knocks all over the place. They were causing casualties on several different teams, and that was kind of the big thing that changed the tide of that game in those final circles. The fact that so many teams were suffering because Gladiators were just not letting anyone run around at all. It was really, really good play. But Nexus are coming alive today. Maybe not getting those chicken dinners all the time, but at least getting a huge amount of points coming through.
They did so well on that match as well to get across that open ground from the compound that you said is very, very tricky to play from. So getting a second place with that point's excellent news. But the Gladiators, they're chasing down those MADBULLS. They're not going to let them go.
All right, Max coming into today. Even the last desk segment, I was like, you know, Gladiators, yes, they've been consistent, but they haven't really had the chicken dinner yet. They're placing like 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe potentially. Then we're looking at MADBULLS. They're continuously getting those chicken dinners. I'm going to take my words back. Because Gladiators, I don't know how they managed to do that. I don't know what happened there, but Gladiators get the chicken dinner against all odds.
I think they mentioned that at one point during the game that Gladiators had no business winning that game.
Yes.
I think with the way they played that game, they had business winning that game. They had such good business right now, okay? Because the way they play their position, they were playing Road Trifecta to the northeast of boot camp, which is just a good defensive position. No one's going to push you away from that spot. And then what they did is they waited for the teams to die in Paradise Resort, the terrain south of it, because you don't have to get involved in that position, right, Ginny? It's such a trashy position to play that you know that teams are going to struggle to exit that position. So VULGAR boys, SBG, SHOCKWAVE, not really going to be an issue. So your main issue is going to be teams southwest of your location, and that was Titan. And they just go further south, kind of push Titan down in a dip where they can't escape. And the moment Titan get eliminated, they just have full clearance on the west. They can do whatever the hell they want. They got some really strong rocks, some decent little ridges to play from, like ridges, sorry, I mean hills. So I actually think the execution on their side was good. It was down to the wire, though, clearly, versus the side of Nexus just had such a massive resurgence in this second day. But yeah, I feel like Gladiators, despite this being a tough circle, they were really methodical in their approach to it, to just avoid taking useless fights and to apply pressure where it needed to be applied.
Yeah, and even coming through with that chicken dinner, when we're looking at Nexus and how they have been performing 13 eliminations in total, that is no small feat. And with the placement points that they get, that actually puts them in the top when we're comparing to how many points Gladiators was able to secure this time around. And it gives us a lot of hope, because we did say Nexus, one of the teams that we had expectations for. I personally have really good expectations for them, but we didn't really see much of those come to life in day one. So it feels like day two has been a lot better. But then another talking point that you really wanted to highlight, Max, was MADBULLS and just how their positioning has, if anything, kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, MADBULLS is a bit weird because they have this 2-2 split in the south, which I think is good, once again, playing a very similar playstyle to Regnum Kari and what we saw in PMRC Europe versus MEA. But they held on to it for so long outside of the circle, and they didn't take care of threats before they became a major issue for their win condition. I think if we see MADBULLS eliminate all of Titan over to the west, or put all of their focus on Alpha Team to the east in their compound and eliminate that team, they get even more space to work with, and then that split makes a little bit more sense. But they just held on for it for so long. Alpha Team leapfrog their position, get in a better spot, have a good angle onto MADBULLS, and then MADBULLS just can't make it any way further into the circle. So yeah, I don't quite get what MADBULLS were doing here. They were playing, I would say, hyper-passive, which is not what I expect from MADBULLS. And in this case, this was something to just lock them out of their winning condition. So I just hope they can rethink it if they ever find themselves in a situation similar to this in the future.
Yeah, they might have locked themselves out of that winning position, but Nexus locking themselves in when we're looking at the team stats and how they have been performing, those are not small numbers, okay? Those are 4-digit numbers. That's a lot. Yeah.
Average elims on day, almost 12 average elims. These are the average stats of like all of today, by the way, over the course of all their matches played. Though their average heals, they are fighting. Like, they're taking shots, they're struggling, but they're healing up, they're getting back up as a 4-man team, and they are putting that pressure on. And 2k average damage too. So these are really aggressive stats, and we saw it yesterday. They were playing way too passive, way too slow on the rotate. It's good to see, Ginny, that they made such a drastic change in their approach to these games in a single day of play. We expect it to happen maybe between the first half and second half of this first phase. No, they've done it between day 1 and day 2. That is such a quick change in how you approach the game, because I guess they've been doing like scrims for weeks before this event, and the fact that they just instantly changed how they played and it's been so successful at that throughout day 2 is so impressive. So I'm loving it. And actually, sorry, I'm going on a big tangent here about NEXUS.
Go for it.
Their rotation this game was so damn beautiful. I loved how they play. Of course, their northern drop team. And I've mentioned this many times about Sanhok in particular. The eastern coast is left completely open. A lot of the times, the eastern coast is not very popular to drop in. Which, if you are Nexus, you see the circle south of Paradise Resort, you don't want to move through Paradise Resort because, let's be clear, it sucks. It really does. You're just going to go wide to the eastern side, enter through Ban, backstab Dark Project, and by doing so, you have full focus and full control of the east side near towards Ban. So Nexus, the way they play this game is beautiful. Sure, not a chicken dinner, but they got so many eliminations to back it up, so I am still really happy. And it was down to a 1v1. And you know, when it's a 1v1, it's anyone's game, really.
Yeah, and it also just shows that, as you said it yourself, the adaptability that's coming out from Nexus, that is really impressive to see. So it's only upwards from here, nothing really negative to say about this. And looking at the overall, I think that's also going to just further showcase the teams that have been coming through with that adaptability. And Nexus putting themselves in the top 3 with that game style. Gladiators are now on 2nd and MADBULLS on 1st. But again, I kind of want to highlight this. MADBULLS did lose that cushion that they had to Gladiators, because now it's only 1 point difference and Nexus 10 points on their heels. And if they have another one of these games, maybe not a chicken dinner, but the amount of elims on the board, they could be taking the throne.
Yeah, you're seeing the top 3 starting to kind of stand out. Nexus, especially with this day, have been able to really just create themselves a little bit of a strong position in that top 3, so it's going to be hard to push them away. Major Pride, actually, Ginny, is the one I'm looking at here. They still have 1 game to play, so that's good, but
yeah,
they have not performed to the standard we expected. Sure, they were getting themselves some decent points yesterday, just not as good in terms of placement. You can see 12 placement points for 32 elims. That's not a ratio that's that good, unfortunately, for them. So Major Pride needs to reach those late games a lot more. Maybe looking at how MADBULLS are doing it, at how Gladiators are doing it, because their approach is very straightforward and unfortunately so far not as successful as you'd like to see.
Yeah, the majority as well of the success from the side of Major Pride was with those individual plays coming through, with players popping off. And you cannot always rely on that. You need to have something in place to be able to lean back on. So it's really exciting to see how they're going to be able to change things up. Oh, again, it's only day 2 and we have Erangel coming up next. But brings a question, which teams have been playing the best on Erangel? Well, don't you worry, because our incredible production team has the answer ready, and it is Nexus.
I mean, Nexus 10.5 average elims on Erangel. I mean, it's still, as we already mentioned right on the pre-show of yesterday, it is going to be an even split of all the maps. But if you can have a map where every Erangel you can pop off the way they have so far, damn.
Yeah,
please do that again. I'm absolutely loving what's coming out from them. Dark Project? No, maybe a Dark Project win. They're playing. I haven't checked, but if they are, I'd like to see a win.
I'd like to see one indeed. We're going to be heading over to Blank and John, who may be able to deliver us the win from Dark Project. But either way, they're going to be walking us through the action of Erangel, so let's check in with them.
Let's try and see if we can get that Dark Project win, Blank. I don't know how much agency we'll have in that, but if they do win, then I'll claim all of it.
Oh yeah, obviously it has to be done. You were 100% the winning factor behind Dark Project's performance during this game that's upcoming. Yeah, I think that right now Nexus is really exploding out of control. Kind of reminds me of PMRC MEA versus EU, like the final day where they got 24 eliminations on 1 match. It was very insane to watch, but just take away from that where they have these games where they just have a huge amount of limbs, and you know that there's a little bit more in there. Like if you kept digging, there is going to be gold, and that's how I feel for Nexus, is that they are so close, just hitting their stride during these games, and then just being like this from tournament to tournament, because I do think that they have an extremely good roster. Octavian has very much impressed me over the past couple of tournaments too. Like he's really taken control of how he wants to play the game a lot of times. Like you'll see him taking these off angles, very confident with it, and when it comes to just really popping off, he can be there as that reliable factor on the team, which is what he is always very good at. Even when the situations gets very dark, very murky, you know, you always have that shining light in Octavian to guide the way when it comes down to it.
Feels like he's doing what Old Boy wants to be doing, you know? Like
I don't think Old Boy wants to do that at all. I think he is the opposite.
Be the off angle.
No, he's the opposite in the sense that, you know, he's not the guiding light for the team. He's sort of the dictator of the team at the moment, because he just wants the team to do their thing, and then he will play the off angle. If they do not win their engagement, then they lose the game. So on the other hand, you have the very supportive Octavian, who he will, on the other hand, if the team is suffering, he'll often come in and support the problem. He'll go off that off angle, he'll provide support to the team. And a lot of times, yes, that does lead to some of those games where they'll all go down together quite quickly, but he does also have those moments where, you know, they might get through a situation that they wouldn't otherwise have done. Like if Old Boy had returned to the team, maybe they win that engagement, maybe they go on. And I mean, we can only talk so much about Old Boy John because he is a very much a legendary player within PUBG Mobile. He is very good. This is a new team. They're still developing. They're still trying to find what is their playstyle. How do they want to play out these games? Because they can win. We've seen it on Sanhok.
Well, from Octavian's performance supporting the rest of the team, they've seen themselves up to third now on the tables. Blank, they're 10 points behind the Gladiators with this game to play. And of course, Gladiators not playing here sit 1 point behind MADBULLS in first place, 83. So if the MADBULLS take a dip early, could be good news for both Nexus and Gladiators in their pursuit for that top spot, but only time will tell. We've seen a couple of eliminations go through at the start already. Major Pride, I think, clashing with KASIK team, and VULGAR Boys with Dagestan, if I'm not mistaken. And so we've lost a couple of players already.
Yeah, straight off the back. I mean, this is a bit of a change that we have been seeing from Europe recently. A lot of times in the past when we watched Europe, it was very passive in the early game. Everyone took their spots, no one really fought too much. But even when we don't have a playing path like this, which does 100% lead to a lot of engagements in the early game, we would still not see teams take these fights. They would often just head towards their drop spots and then just play the game out from there. Very gentleman-like, but I think we're seeing more of a barbaric streak now in EU, which is always good to see. It makes me happy, and I think a lot of times these teams are much more willing to go for these engagements that will give them more strength in the long run.
And I think in general, in terms of play style, when you look at more international tournaments, it's the teams that do go for these aggressive early game scraps, these barbaric runs that in general create a lot of pressure in the areas surrounding the drops that they like to go for. So like you say, in the long run, not only in this tournament, but even further beyond, I feel hopeful.
Yeah, for EU, it's definitely important because a lot of times when we see EU go to an international stage, we will see them a lot of times not take these positions, give them up to other side, and we switch back to this very much edge play style. You will often see some of the worst teams that often I don't want to say worse, but, you know, the teams lower down on the tables during those tournaments, taking center as opposed to some of the EU teams that we know can take center. It is interesting to me because I feel like a lot of those teams then get more points that could have perhaps been taken up by some of the other teams at lobby. I'm very EU biased, you know, at the end of the day, who I'm always supporting when it comes to those tournaments. But I know there's potential in EU, and I really do love this region. It's full of great PUBG Mobile, and I think it's only getting better.
Absolutely. We were just discussing in the break how we're really enjoying these roster changes. I think we had very few remaining rosters in the spring season, but coming into fall, it seems like there has been a lot of moves. But in general, we're seeing the same names and we're seeing some of the same pairings and trios really start to find their feet. And we talked about last year as the year, well, last season and the year before that, as well as the year of improvement, really, for the general global PUBG Mobile scene. But I think at this point, we're seeing the era of perfection for a lot of these rosters and for a lot of these playstyles.
Yeah, exactly, because what we're starting to see now is teams being very much... Because I think what we had before in the past with EU is rosters that were very much set in stone. You'd have the same people returning in again and again. And NEXUS is a great example of this. Back on Eastern Stars, they would have the same roster every single time. And I think at some point they realized that this is not working. And I was totally okay to see Octavian and Kapahala stay together, two great players, but then iterate on that and start to introduce new players to the team. I think Gladiators is one of the only teams that we have seen remain as a full force squad, but all those players are fantastic. On the other hand, we've got Titans now. Rob's heading over there from Super Big Gorillas. He looks great on that team, and I think Titans have a long way to go, but I think on that path they will find a lot of success as well. So we're seeing a lot of these teams that used to be very adamant rosters start to get switched up in a little bit, and although I'm sad to see very much household names leaving the scene, I'm also really happy to see these rosters that look like they've been created from all these other players that have really good stories behind them, and suddenly you have these very strong rosters now coming out from EU.
I mean, teams like Alpha, for instance, a couple of names that are maybe not at the forefront of a lot of people's minds coming in. You will have heard of a couple of them if you've been following PUBG Mobile for a while, but I feel like Alpha has really made their mark so far in this tournament, in this result. I think PERMITTA as well, in their Sanhok play, have made themselves known overall. So it's really good to see that there are still threats to these long-standing rosters. Hopefully, it will just continue to grow. As we've said time and time again, that really is the goal, is just to improve the play style. No matter which region you're in, obviously we are a little bit EU biased, but who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I mean, it's also awesome because you get teams like TUNA Esports, VULGAR Boys, PERMITTA Esports all coming in, relatively new teams, ready to make their mark and make their name. And I think that, you know, if you are one of those teams, you can kind of aspire to be sort of like Excuse Me from Spring Split. That is a nasty pickup coming through from Alpha's the Sheeper, gets 2 players down from Titan. There is a bit of a backlash though, but you can kind of aspire to be like Excuse Me, who was a team that had Blackwhite, had Furia, had several other really strong players on that side who have now all just gone into their separate rosters and found success everywhere. Reflect is really good.
Where did that one come from? Okay, VIRTUS.PRO are third-partying the engagement. Havlik given a lifeline to get away. As Elementrix now suppressed on the ridgeline. Justmander in standing and will be tagged up. Alpha, unfortunately, going down first. That is not what they wanted to happen. It looked like they had a good engagement, but then VIRTUS.PRO piked their head over the rooftops, and MADBULLS cycled across the open ground and took them back.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants this spot, right? Everyone wants to head towards heaven, but there is a huge amount of teams in this area. And with the playing path being down towards that south side, I think a lot of teams assumed that there wouldn't be a huge amount of teams in heaven, so they could quickly go and take it. As opposed to, you know, if you get a normal playing path through the dead center, you know, might get MUERTE or a team like SBG that already head down towards heaven side. Luckily, for a lot of these teams down towards heaven, they don't have to fight and scrap over this spot for much longer. The circle moves up towards that northwest side. Right now, Major Pride playing in no lean. A really good spot to play, has some great angles. Does mean you have to flex out just a little bit on the sides as the compound doesn't fully watch over the edges of the cliff, but a good spot either way.
The Yasnaya Fields, a constantly treacherous area of the map blank that sits south of Yasnaya, is going to be a major factor for all of these teams on the south side looking to try and move in. Controlling the crossing is what SHOCKWAVE is trying to do, which is one of the only ways out of those fields. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see a couple of these teams on the south crash into Yasnaya. Even at this stage, we generally disparage that sort of idea. Going into a compound early makes leaving really quite hard as teams create a surrounding shell around that position. But with it sitting as it is, there's a lot of teams on this south side, and they're all going to have to find somewhere to go, and one of those only options might be Yaz.
Yeah, I mean, for Yasnaya Poliana, you're going through the fielded area as well is pretty difficult. So you'll see a lot of teams actually heading up towards Northside, towards Kameshki, maybe swing about towards Stalba. Even just Rozhok crossing could be an option for some of these teams. So MADBULLS at the moment, we know that they do like to play down towards the Lake of Yaz and then slowly make their way across that bridge in the late game. But at the moment, the circle's still closing in. Most teams within this, and we've had a lot of scraps early on, down to 50 players already, so 14 have left the lobby. So I don't know how many more scraps there will be in the future, John.
Might have lowered the player density enough such that there can be an equilibrium in stage 2. We'll have to wait and see. The spots might present themselves. Major Pride on that north side, the MUERTE a little bit further up the hill, might have down shots onto them, but the tree cover is there to play around, and Major Pride can be okay for now. Dagestan sent across from that western side and have found themselves on the northwestern point of Yasnaya, so they'll be fairly safe for the time being. MADBULLS playing on the compounds on the west edge of those Yasnaya fields, a little bit further south.
Yeah, right now, a lot of teams are locked into their spots. It's unlikely we'll see a huge amount of teams making a mass migration as of yet. You know, PERMITTA Esports, KASIK, TUNA Esports all need to get a little bit further into the circle. NEXUS also slowly rounding out on the top of Stalba after they made that long rotate up towards the north side of Pachinki. Naomi going down, though, is a bit unfortunate, with Dagestan actually taking him out. So Major Pride down to just 3 players. And this is the problems that we were talking about earlier in the day, John, as a case of just making some of these slightly wild scouting plays and losing a player. And again, Major Pride just slowly cut down their player count throughout the game to the point where it becomes really impossible to play. Now, if they just committed to no lean, where they currently are on the map, you know, they would have had an insane opportunity to win this game because there's little to no strong compounds around this area. It's a real dogged approach from that southeast side. This could have been a winning spot for them, but instead they opt to send a player down towards South Yaz Lake. I don't really understand it.
It's difficult, but they'll have to lump it because they don't really have any other choice at this point. Still 3 players though, and we know that Major Pride have got some skills in the bag. Hopefully they'll be able to execute on that, but as you say, with 3, it's a little bit trickier. The MADBULLS on the south side, who are currently leading the tables, they were on those compounds to the west of Yasnaya and the hook in the road, really strong for overlooks on that area, but they sent south and rotated through to the bridge east of Rozhok, and now they're right behind TUNA on the west flank, looking to try and push in on that side. You can see them now following up. Zero, the straggler here. Zerich wants to hop out and take shots towards him. Not going to be able to quite connect fully on the spray. So we'll hop back in and get back on the road again.
Yeah, go a little bit further here, probably the most ideal spot for them. You know, we will see TUNA Esports taking up gas station, pretty decent position to play in. Quite easily nadeable and can be quite tricky to hold out, but the best thing about gas station is the fact that there is so much open ground around it, and I think TUNA Esports realized that, you know, there's a compound up ahead that's more free, a little bit less difficult to hold out on, and they can just send towards.
MADBULLS constantly punishing TUNA. You can see Tulika hopping out, knows he has an opportunity there, and they will flush that one away nice and fast. TUNA crash because they're forced to into Major Pride. They do not have anywhere else to go, and it's really not going to go well for you there. Instead, just send your last player out, try and survive on the north side of that Yaz Lake.
Yeah, I think the issue now with no lean as well is the fact that it's quite a big compound, so playing with 3 players is not exactly ideal because you can't hold all the corners of it, but they're doing their best, and they do hold out TUNA Esports, albeit they were on the absolute retreat from MADBULLS. So MUERTE, though, finds 2 players over towards Unicorn to Love and will continue on their way. This is over towards that northeast side of the map.
Malloy actually at a wide split away from this 3-player position for the MUERTE. The thing that's helping Major Pride in that position, Blank, like you were saying, they can't hold all the corners, is the fact that Stalba Hill is currently fraught with danger for everybody playing there. Once that engagement concludes, Major Pride's position weakens significantly without 4.
Yeah, I think the good thing about their spot, though, especially for Stalber at least, is that teams coming off Stalber, it's so hard to contest no-lean a lot of times because, you know, you're coming down off Stalber side, the rocky outcrops are disgusting to play around. MUERTE Malloy, though, is doing really good work, and he can head down towards the small amount of cover that is in his area, can recall the rest of his team towards him, and this might just be a case of holding out the rest of the teams on the east because they know that there has to be more squads here. This cannot be this barren at this point in the game. There is still Yasnaya teams to move up this way.
Yeah, I was just going to start talking about that because you've got Dagestan, SBG, and VIRTUS.PRO all looking to leave the north side of Yasnaya, and very few routes for them all to do so successfully. Could be a case of Dagestan swinging out to the west, past that Shockwave and past that MADBULLS position, but even that is really, really difficult to make happen. In the meantime, PERMITTA, they're starting off well on the engagement, but it's traded off by VULGAR boys. Pylaus able to find that refrag. They have lost Tresley already, but moving down this hill towards PERMITTA, they are going to start to put more pressure down the hill here. Dakim looking for more shots through the smoke. We'll be able to find it. They've spotted Folly breaking out wide. They know he's here. He's the last player to stand now for PERMITTA and needs to come up big. Eats one shot with the pan, but will not be able to do so any further. PERMITTA go down to none as VULGAR boys stay up on 3, but that might change as VIRTUS.PRO have entered the fight.
Yeah, it's a horrific push for a lot of these teams, which is why you do see most seasoned teams like Dagestan and SBG just holding in Yasnaya. Not really worth it for them to head up here. They can wait for a lot of these engagements to settle down, and with holding Yasnaya, not having to cross those fields, they can stay very safe for a long time. At this point, though, with the circle shifting, they will have to move up now and might want to start getting involved in some of these engagements towards that north side. MUERTE still as a 4-man squad, though, have a massive amount of control over this space.
This is really good news for MUERTE. The only team that kind of has a better position is I guess, Major Pride, but they're still on 3, like we've been highlighting over the course of this match so far, losing the player down southeast side. Really far from ideal. Can MUERTE contest this super strong position?
Depends if the circle remains over towards that northeast side for a long time. Zadira taking shots, won't quite finish off any players from SBG, and they can keep going through. Now Vala actually gets a nice pickup over towards Keep. As Victor scouts over the top side. Nade in hand, 5 available for him. Could get some decent nades down this way. Very obvious positions to be played for this team of Dagestan. And I think if the nades are placed nicely, that will be a decent, quick squad wipe coming through from SBG.
MADBULLS pressuring in from the west on the flip side of it. As Limbo is the last standing for Dagestan. Pushes up towards Keep. Now Valo first to receive, breaks out wide, spots Limbo, but he's spotted in return. The nade's being cooked. Limbo pressured back behind the vehicle as Snowix and Victor rally in for the support, and this is going to be the end of Limbo. Narvalo even has an angle under the vehicle. The nade is good for 1, but is going to be able to get rezzed here, and SBG have won the exit from Yasnaya. But in the meantime, Dagestan, they're here to play now. They had that control over the northeast side blank. You talked about it a lot. They have now moved in to stop SBG going any further.
Now this is where the circle becomes a little bit more rough, and MUERTE can really start to exert control over this northeast side, John. It does get a bit difficult heading up this way, but their first task in hand is SBG. Can they take them down? They've already got a knock over that way, and realistically, MUERTE just need to leave Milky Way up towards the northeast. He's going to scout, and they're going to have the rest of the team hold out SBG. It's a very difficult spot to push out from, John.
MADBULLS regrouping on the western side of the circle, not pushing into Major Pride just yet, but on the west side they probably have one of the better opportunities to do so, depending on what sort of oversight MUERTE are able to establish on that approach.
I think MADBULLS might even be able to get towards the high ground, towards the Nameless. No one's really looking at this side. The western edge is practically completely clear, so MADBULLS have a lot of space to play with now. It's the question of getting across the rest of the space, because this land mass that's around the compound that currently Major Pride's holding, very difficult to work with, but MADBULLS are just going to send directly up towards the Nameless. I like this play. It's aggressive, it's confident, and it might just be what MADBULLS need.
they've drawn a little bit short and they're on that ridge line. They're regrouping, making sure that they are ready to go for that full assault. MUERTE, oversight onto SBG that we know they've had for a while now. Allow one through, but Victor not so lucky. Snowix up with a lot of damage sent his way, and they do manage to get Alex in there as well. Narvalo very, very split. You can see him far southwest, not backing up this push whatsoever. And the nades start to pour downhill from MUERTE. Will be able to get those shots done as well. Narvalo not going to have an impact just yet, and indeed won't do so at all. So SBG on one, playing close to Skillses from KASIK, the last player from that roster as well.
Furia makes it happen, drops down. So we got two separate predictions coming through. You and Ginny going for MADBULLS, me and Max going for MUERTE. I do like this spot for MUERTE, and they're playing a little bit more close together. Shockwave tried to crash in towards Major Pride. They've opted to take down towards the southeast quadrant of that compound. They're going to consolidate all the forces in that area, and I think that's acceptable to do, considering they're not going to get crashed by a lot of teams. Zerich does go down. That's a nice shot coming through from Malloy. Can he finish him off? He can. That's going to give them a huge benefit over towards the long run of the game. They had to finish that fight with SBG and immediately re-ascertained what the biggest threat in the lobby was, and it's this fight happening on the western side.
Malloy has had such an impact from this high ground angle, doing so much work. Frozen, that's easy pickings for him. Beast will fall, as will his teammates. MADBULLS sweep the fight, and it's unfortunate for them that they lose one of their players. Major Pride finally have a contender in their compound, but MUERTE. 10 eliminations, high ground position with Malloy doing so much to curtail the MADBULL hopes.
Yeah, Milky Way's really held his own as well. I mean, when you're playing an off angle like this, you just have to be very, very diligent in terms of not letting teams peek you, not peek for too long, because if he goes down, then realistically, a lot of the pressure on this side of the map is just removed because he's not getting information back towards the rest of his team. So for MUERTE, a lot of this stems off the back of Milky Way. That shift comes down towards MUERTE as well. They control a really strong spot. You can see this small valley that cuts through where MADBULLS have to cross over towards MUERTE. So this fight will be a little bit one-sided towards MUERTE because it's MADBULLS that have to push to them. This is going to have to be some serious PUBG Mobile coming through from MADBULLS if they want to win.
Agnazada holding out on the upstairs, but you imagine it's only a matter of time. Can he make a miracle happen? I just don't think so. Shockwave will go down with him, but the shots from MUERTE, they're ever present in these circles. The MADBULLS have moved down south. Of course, you talked about that valley that sits between them. MADBULLS do not want to try and cross that. Not in a fair fight anyway. But they might not have any other choice. You can see they're trying to move south and break away from this, but there's really no cover that you can take that Major Pride won't be able to spot.
Yeah, this is one of those egregious splits from MUERTE that you can sort of forgive, considering the positioning they have. But I think they've understood the assignment very well. They have to shoot at everything. Nothing can get close towards this high ground. As soon as players start to be able to infiltrate towards these outcrops of rocks, life becomes very hard. So MUERTE, let's hope they've got enough ammo in the back pocket. There's Narvalo, though, versus SPG. Finds initial knock. This is bad news.
We know that Narvalo has the survival chops in him, and bringing the threat down to 2 players is huge. MADBULLS, they've made the cross. Flique spotted, cut down by Corker on the cross, as Tulika's up to Rollkiss now. They're in a very central, they're in a position that isn't going to immediately result in death, so Tulika might be able to survive a little bit longer and get up to that top 3 spot that they'll be looking for. Rollkiss, though, on the upstairs. I wonder if they know he's there. You've got to imagine with the buggy on the outside, they know there's a player here. There's actually, I think, 3 vehicles littered around, but Furia looking out like a hawk.
I mean, he took a really crazy angle here versus MADBULLS. Like, he's rotated all the way around. He might even take shots over towards Frozen. Narvalo finds Nomi through the window. Dino looking to take over towards him. Actually then sends out a nasty nade to the side. The bounce is good. Dino waits just long enough.
Just about surviving for now. 4 teams now remain. The MADBULLS trying to regroup. And actually Furia dropping smokes allows Frozen to get into a position where he might have some cover. Furia just about catches him on the cross. Rollkiss looks for the shots, and I think that might have been from Major Pride as well, suppressing the angle. But the MADBULLS will not be able to survive, and Rollkiss is still alive.
Yeah, it's been a very protected position here. Getting into it was tough, but it's definitely bought him some time. Really nice rotate coming through from from Furia, sorry. That reposition was crazy good. Milky Way takes down Rolkus as he tries to stand up. Now just Major Pride below. And again, we highlighted this compound right at the start of the game. It is unbelievably strong. Very hard to hold when you start losing players, but it definitely gives you a huge amount of benefit, especially teams coming over towards you. It's one of those spots where you can just take shots at anyone that's approaching. Look how flat the land is around them. But as soon as we had this shift up towards the northeast side, MUERTE basically had it in the bag, but they have made this game look a lot easier than it really should have been.
16 potential eliminations this game for MUERTE as well. A really good way to close out their day for the roster. 9th place at the start of this match. They certainly needed a result like this. I think you had them in your top 3, if I'm not mistaken. I think someone else might have done as well. So hopefully they can continue this power moving forward to tomorrow's games as well. But it is only that one match.
Yeah, this is sort of what I expected coming from MUERTE. They're a really strong team. They're kind of like the pub stomp team, though. You let them get out of control and they will absolutely destroy a lot of squads in the lobby. But I think they're realizing, coming from PMRC EU versus Africa, this is a much harder lobby. And they have started to bring things closer together. They're still taking these really aggressive splits, these really aggressive lines, which I love to see. Once they get a dominant spot, it is very difficult to claw back a game off to MUERTE.
They'll just need to fling themselves a little bit further up the tables, which they'll be able to do so. Currently sat 51 points without the placements that they're guaranteed to accrue. Milky Way descending into the open flat ground, and Furia does not go down in the trade. Nomi tried to stay out in the blue and play a sneaky angle, maybe give Dino a chance, but goes down in the zone. And that is going to be MUERTE closing it down for the final match of the day with a chicken dinner from the Tales of Stauber.
Really strong game. I think we've got to also highlight MADBULLS, the fact that they made that push and identified some really strong positions on the map. You know, they didn't always have the best position there. You know, they had to wait a long time before crossing Rozdog. They hunted down TUNA Esports, gave themselves an opening, but realistically, it is MUERTE to steal the show there. Again, like I said, you give this team an inch and they will take a mile every single time. I think they just have to realize that this isn't just like playing in Conqueror. You can't just go into ranked and start destroying squads. This is the Pro League. You can't play so aggressively or so split. You need to bring things back together. But I think this is a team that can definitely be up towards a podium finish. We've got so many teams like that in PMPL EU. It's fantastic.
And that's what we were talking about all at the start of the game, Blank. There are so many storied players, storied teams, and in the end, it could be any of them to take this top spot. But right now, the MADBULLS, off the back of their 12-point game just there, are able to maintain that spot at the top going into day number 3. We'll see what more they can do. Let's head back over to the desk.
Well, with that one, Max, we get to take it off the bingo card. MUERTE get their chicken dinner as well. And that was something that we were looking forward to earlier today. We mentioned it at the start of the day. We said, MUERTE needs to get something on the board, because you mentioned it yourself. It was a team that may be a little lackluster in terms of what you expected them to be showing so far in fall.
I like what they mentioned during the game. I think Blank mentioned it, is that they clearly had a realization that, okay, they were able to get away with stuff during PMRC Europe Africa that here is just not going to cut it. You need to regroup those formations so much faster. They didn't really regroup this game, but they were holding angles that were so strong, and they were applying pressure to make sure that their position wasn't... there wasn't any real weak spot, let's say, to their position. I really enjoyed what MUERTE were doing this game. 24 point on the board. More specifically, though, Major Pride playing in no lean is so good that they get themselves these points, because I was talking about it as a storyline in terms of PMGC points.
Yeah.
Major Pride was starting to slip away, and Major Pride, MADBULLS, and Gladiators were starting to close that PMGC point gap. So it's good for them to get 13 points. They are still staying relevant in that conversation.
Yeah, but you do also compare it to the 12 points that MADBULLS is getting, both elims and placement points. So it is going to be like trying to get the balance right. I think Major Pride needs a couple more pop-off games, or MADBULLS just needs a little bit of a slower day. But I am absolutely impressed, to say the least, by how MADBULLS has been performing over the last 2 days. I was thinking yesterday, okay, they get a chicken dinner, maybe it's a flash in the pan, then they get a podium finish. I'm like, okay, then they get another chicken dinner, and then the same thing today. So I think it's definitely scary looking at them, but nothing to take away from MUERTE. I'm hoping this is the game that kickstarts their success for the rest of fall. Furia with his 5 elims and 2 nade elims. the team is it's getting there.
Yeah, Furia is clearly a standout player for them. I'd say personally my favorite player of the team is Furia. He's been so impressive back in PMRC Europe Africa. Malloy is also doing a lot of heavy lifting for the team. I think the squad as a whole is doing really well when it comes to late game control when they still have 3-4 players alive. Though, no props to Novalo. He really almost ruined it for Major Pride. He could have cleared the entire team in outside of top 5, possibly. Yeah. But they were able to just get themselves that 1v1 towards the end and get themselves the res. And also, important factor, they do die to the blue zone and Dino actually self-nades, which just denies a few points away. 2 points could make a difference at the end of this first phase. So good on them for taking them away from the MUERTE.
Yeah, it also feels like today, when we're looking at all the games overall, Max, it has been a little less explosive than yesterday. I think yesterday, a lot of the teams coming in with that adrenaline, trying out new things, and today it feels like everyone's getting used to each other in the lobbies. It's been slowed down a little, a lot more counterplay, a lot more waiting out for teams to make a mistake, rather than just go.
You saw it was NEXUS, right? That NEXUS have made these big iterations. So it's not just like your Major Pride, your MADBULLS, your Gladiators are going to be doing really well. You've got now Alpha Team that's been getting themselves some really good games. You've got NEXUS that are starting to be a lot more confident, a lot more aggressive, and really strong when it comes to their macro mechanics and who's IGLing for the team is doing a really good job there. So overall, it's not just a few teams at the top doing well. A lot of teams have had to improve. And again, Ginny, the fact that it's happened between 2 days is so much more impressive to me, because it normally takes a while to change your approach to the game, change what you've been training for so long, and then find some success out of it. But doing it in a lapse of less than 24 hours impressed me so much, especially for NEXUS. They've been the standout team of the day with their 2 wins. So glad to see it, and I just hope it's not going to be a flash in the pan. I hope it's going to continue in the following days to see if they can get some more success.
Yeah, and also hope that you gracing us with illustration segments are no longer flashes in the pan. And when we're looking at the top damage today, I mean, starting off with the MUERTE, this is a really good game from their end. We were saying we wanted to see more, and that's exactly what they did. Miles ahead of the competition when we're comparing it to MADBULLS as well as Major Pride in terms of the elimination as well on the board. And then you have VULGAR boys slowly creeping up on these league tables every now and then. But I'm really looking to see whether or not we're going to be seeing more from them as well as from SPG, because these teams have made a little show here and there, but it's not been enough to really convince me just yet.
We need to see a little bit more, right? I think it's fair to say that we need to see a little bit more, hopefully, from these guys is going to be able to step up. I mean, we saw some good moments, though. One thing I do wonder, why is VULGAR boys and PERMITTA Esports always taking out each other? I don't know why. There's like some kind of
rivalry
line. We don't know, some kind of rivalry. Maybe that's what's going on, but it's always those teams fighting, and this time it was on the southern side of Stolberg Mountain. Not too sure what was really happening there. But yeah, there's a lot of potential for these teams. There's only 2 days in. It feels like we're already in like phase 2, seeing all these changes that we've witnessed, which is so impressive, really. Though one team, if I had to talk about one team in particular, this game, it would be Dagestan 77. They were playing very early on into the position of Yasnaya Polyana. They went northwest of Yasnaya Polyana. And by doing so is really good because it facilitates your rotation outside of the city. But then they get leapfrogged very easily by the entirety of SPG. So Dagestan's got to be a bit careful on those moves.
Yeah, something to keep in mind for the future, but we're looking at the winners for today. We have Titan, NEXUS, we have MADBULLS, Gladiators, and then MUERTE. A blast from the past in terms of the teams that are currently on those chicken dinner wins for today, but also having that newer team that has just recently joined, Titan, getting that chicken dinner as well, getting the recognition that they deserve, something that I'm also looking forward to. But consistency is key, and I guess some things never change, and that is Gladiators and MADBULLS getting at least 1 chicken dinner a day.
True. I mean, Titan, after that 1 chicken dinner they got himself at the start of the day, they got a little bit silent for the rest of those matches, but that's okay. Still a really big chicken dinner they were able to secure, and early on those wins actually can set you up apart pretty significantly. So I'm really intrigued to see what the leaderboards look like, because with how the results have been, it might be a little bit up in the air to see who's in that, top 5 position, let's say. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely something to keep our eye forward to. But I'm going to have to ask you as well if you have an MVP for today that you would like to share with us.
Octavian.
Oh, no. Yeah, I was going to say Octavian too, because, I mean, NEXUS has had such an incredible day, and the elims that's been secured by Octavian on the board have been absolutely wild. So let's see if that is true. Yeah. Wow. Well, we're correct. We're actually getting our predictions right. Look at us. Who would have thought?
Romania's strong.
I mean, absolutely. 15 limbs for him by himself. That is no small feat. Definitely worthy of the MVP title of today. And the highlights are just going to show exactly how the bloodbath has occurred thanks to Octavian and just carrying Nexus to that win.
I do have to say, Octavian was sometimes a little bit adventurous, right? He did get away with some pushes. I'm like, oh, damn, he was going for some 1v2 pushes, especially on that first Erangel, but he got away with it because...
Risk it for the biscuit.
Oh, because he's Octavian, but also because he risked it for that very, very tasty biscuit, and it worked out a lot of the time. So really glad to see. And this is the Western rotation, the Eastern rotation I mentioned during that Sanhok. That wide wrap around the East because they know how teams like to move and drop around. Sanhok is so impressive because they know how these teams are going to react to that kind of circle. So backstab onto Dark Project, cross the road, get in road trifecta, and aim for that second place. So really impressed with Nexus, and do more of that, Nexus. It was really good. And Octavian hopefully can get MVP another day.
Well, we're gonna have to wait and see because we are done for today, and with that, the overall standings of Day 2 of PMPL EU Fall 2023 have also been impacted. MADBULLS still staying at the top, although a cushion of 13 points, not the 20 that they started the day off with. Nexus Gaming have managed to get themselves into that third spot, and really, to me, Max, it's the fact that Major Pride have gone from 3rd to 6th within a day.
Exactly, and it impacts the PMGC points. We talked about it a little bit earlier, Ginny. We'll look at the PMGC points in tomorrow's pre-show, so if you want to see an update on that, I can tell you already it's going to be really interesting, but do stay tuned, and we'll check it out tomorrow on the pre-show at the start of the stream. Though Alpha Team still staying heavily relevant here, get himself some decent points here and there, and able to get himself those some pop-off performances. They did get himself that big performance at the start of the day. 64 points currently, staying relevant with the likes of Nexus, Gladiators, and MADBULLS at the top of the tables. Though, Titans still, they get himself that big win, right? But they can't follow it up, and because of that, still towards the bottom side of this first page. But I know this team, Ginny, has the potential to be in that top 3.
Yeah, because when we're looking at MADBULL, they're number 1 with 3 chicken dinners, whereas they have 1 chicken dinner for Titan, and the limbs are absolutely off the charts. So all they need is getting maybe 1 or 2 more, push themselves up in that leaderboard. But going on to that second page as well, I think further highlights the teams that are maybe struggling a little bit. VIRTUS.PRO, VULGAR Boys, No Mercy Warriors, Dark Project as well. I think Dark Project today, we've seen a little glimpse of what we can expect from them specifically, but it hasn't really given them a chance yet to put themselves a little further in that league table. But still, you're top 12. You're still qualifying for that bonus map at the end of the phase, but who knows?
Who knows? I mean, I know something, which is the VIRTUS.PRO not playing up to par with what we expected. I mean, this roster, we mentioned it even on a pre-show of yesterday, Wait, Beck, Elementrix, Madness, all of these guys was so impactful as individuals in the spring season. And we said, is it going to work in practice? Is it going to work in an actual day of PMPL Europe with all of these amazing teams? And unfortunately, the transition has not been super successful. They still get a decent elimination here and there, but they're just not reaching those late game moments. And the team synergy doesn't seem there. The IGLing doesn't seem on point. So right now, MADBULLS are the one dominating the lobby, and they're still the team to beat. Yes.
All right. You know what? For Arts and Crafts, I give that a 2 out of... How many maps? 5. A 2 out of 5. There we go. I hope that is better than your points today for the predictions, because when we're looking at today specifically, you have 9 points in total, Max. Okay. Look at Blank absolutely chilling.
He's chilling. He's thinking real hard.
He's thinking real hard.
He's been thinking all the off-season of PMPL Europe, and he's still dominating right now. But yeah, I got 3 wins predicted. I'm pretty happy about that one. The jacket's worked out, so I'm going to wear it every single day. I won't wash it, Ginny. It's going to stink.
Oh, even when it's like 30 degrees? Oh, no, please. I do not want to think about that. That could not be goodness. Make sure you wash your clothes, okay? Please.
Okay.
You're setting a terrible precedent. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you to Monster for making it possible to go through all 10 maps over the last 2 days. We're going to be back tomorrow with another 5-mapper and another chance for you to support your favorite teams. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow. Have an incredible rest of your day, and we'll see you then.